to the screen that the screen of that, like,
really,
you just feel like you're in this world, but you're really not moving hardly at all.
Billy, you'd agree, right? There is no ride in the history of rides better than Avatar as a ride. Period. You can put that on the poll at Batard Show. You don't agree? What do you?
There's a Fast and Furious ride at Universal.
Okay.
I have not been on that, but it can't be.
Shameful admission, neither have I.
Where's the Avatar ride?
Yeah.
Where's that ride at? Where's the Avatar ride?
It's
Animal Kingdom.
Look at that. You got right in there.
Animal Kingdom.
I mean, he's an expert.
He has a child.
Yep.
People plan their vacations around that ride because if you're going to wait in that line, you're going to be waiting there 6 days. You need to take a week off to get into that thing.
Dan didn't wait that. Dan,
you fast pass. You got to schedule that months in
Yeah,
advance.
you got walked VIP, walked up.
I would be the first person in line waiting for Soren. Like you would have to sprint to Soren to get a ride in early in the morning with your kids.
Now Soren's like 45 minutes, easy wait. I'm pretty sure I waited like 2.5 hours for the Avatar ride. Dan, tell us. You walked right up. VIP.
Yeah, I did. I walked right up.
I don't know what the magic of Soren. For me, it's the smell. When really it could just be like they smell orange Febreze, right? Like it's really all it is. But it's an intoxicating smell.
Oh, my friend, you haven't been on the updated one. We are no longer just traveling the United States. On Soren, you now travel the world.
Billy,
So
what
are the updated smells
why is
then?
Billy so pleased with himself? I don't understand. At first with the Fast and the Furious that derailed the show right there, and now just pleased with himself in a way that's charming and annoying.
He should be. Billy, on the original Soren, when you would fly over PGA West, would you flinch when the golf ball was coming at you?
You always thought you were going to get hit by the golf ball. I will say this about the new Soren. When you go through Paris, the Eiffel Tower is always crooked to me, to the point where I wonder, is this thing going to fall? Even though I know this isn't the real world, but I do always wonder, why is this thing so crooked? And it's because the screen is like round, but I feel like that should be addressed because it always looks a little bit askew to me.
Chris, why are you laughing?
Thank you for that note, Billy.
Okay, yes. Excellent start.
I mean, if there's any Imagineers listening.
The funniest part about this, I don't believe anyone's informed Billy that we just cut straight into our conversation and we've been airing this for about 2 minutes. I don't think there was
good.
And news to me as
but
well.
You were,
Good morning, everybody.
They didn't tell anybody. They just put us on there. There's some certain dangers in that. We might want to be more responsible about that in the future. Paul George has arrived in this most evil of sort of purgatories for stars, where we only talk about when you have the game that confirms our bias that you aren't any good at having the important game, because he played one last night. He was every bit as good as Kawhi. Kawhi's got a great meat shield in Paul George here because Kawhi's won, and we're never going to blame Kawhi for what's happening with the Clippers.
Paul George, we've criticized him often. Everyone has, and deservedly so. But in this series, he's averaging 27 points a game. He has been great. He's distributing the ball. He's playing great.
No one wants to talk about that. It's only the late night games where he fails and we can get up and do the playoff P commercial.
Playoff P has been proven to work in the regular season for those who have struggled with moderate to severe postseason disappointment. It is not recommended as a first option. Do not take Playoff P while on Granger. Side effects include choking, heaving, not finishing, constipation, finishing early, and all-around disappointment. Playoff P is not for everyone. Call your doctor if you experience susceptibility to catfishing, kissy face, Australian sensitivity, paternity suits, the inexplicable urge to play for the Lakers, or thinking that dude's butt belongs to a lady. If you experience the loss of Oladipo, please call your doctor immediately. Get headed in a new direction with Playoff P.
We're going to give you an extra show this week, so you're going to get some of this show tomorrow with an assortment of our other releases, and we're excited about some of the guests we have. Jim Lampley, Bonzi Wells, Bubba Wallace, a lot of people we've been wanting to talk to for a while, but I wanted to go back to a conversation we were having in the local hour because I'm not totally sure. Stugotz didn't know that the lead graduate in a graduating class is known as the valedictorian. He spelled it with 2 V's. Mm-hmm. And I'm not certain when he called it VV that he didn't think it was valid Victorian.
Couple of V's, cutting it up.
2 words. I'm not totally sure after having experienced it, that he didn't think it was valid Victorian. And the place that I go for this is Old Brill Cream over there, because he was just telling us, Greg Cody, you should have seen how delighted he was. Chris Whittingham, 28 years old, purchased Brill Cream by Amazon. When did you say, how long did you say the website was down, or nobody had visited it in 7 years? It was covered in cobwebs?
Yeah, I was like very eager to tag Brill Cream on Twitter, say, hey, I purchased your product. And then I looked at Brill Cream, and it had like 122 followers and was last active in 2014. And it made me very sad about the purchase that I just made on Amazon.
You mentioned sad, and I wanted to go down this path because I'm sorry if you don't know what Brill Cream is. It's what Greg Cody brings to the proceedings, an ad from the 1950s that would have been with a barbershop quartet. And of course, Whittingham loves it. But you mentioned sad, and it got me to thinking about which is the sadder version here. Chris Cody saying earlier in the show today that he dreams of a life 40 years from now where he could just go to the dog track every day. That is the height of his dreams, which was just staggering to hear. The most surprising admission in Cody family history lore since Greg Cody said he longed to be a garbage man.
He is longing to be Hank Goldberg.
He is longing in his 70s to just be at the track, as he said, betting the ponies. But you, Stugotz, might want to sit this out, because in some sort of strange Tourette's that Stugotz has, he just blurted out of nowhere with no context at all, maybe just trying to give me show material, I played cards at a casino. And I'm thinking it's like a Coconut Creek casino, right? It's one of these incredibly sad casinos down here. It's not a Vegas casino.
It was Seminole Coconut Creek. Wow. The saddest of casinos.
Explain to people what that is. How did you end up playing cards there, longing for some sort of desperate normalcy, that you ended up playing cards at the casino and reindeer games?
So they have a steakhouse there. It's called the New York Yankee Steakhouse.
Oh, yeah. Been there.
Right. If you're a baseball fan or a Yankee fan.
There.
Of course, Greg has been there.
Yeah.
I'm sure he thinks of it as fine dining.
It is fine dining. It couldn't have been any worse than the highlight where we had to play poker.
No.
Yeah.
No. Same category.
Same realm. Same realm.
Man.
Yes, a smoker's room where there's leprosy caked on the walls. Yes.
Yeah. So you could smoke in the casino, but there's also VIP rooms where there is no smoking, and there are VIP rooms where there is smoking. I chose the smoking. And so I went into the VIP room, and I was playing blackjack. And here is the beauty of cards in 2021, Dan. You are separated by a piece of fiberglass, and it is thick. There is no communication. No one listen. If you're making a face because I hit on a 16 when the dealer showed 6 and I'm the last person there, listen, nothing you can do about it.
It's
you can't
awful.
yell at me anyway. No, it's not.
It's even
great.
sadder than
No,
it
it's
was
terrible.
before.
Like,
I have my own personal little spots, like my own desk. No one can talk to me. I don't have to talk to anyone.
It's a cubicle in the saddest place on earth.
Blackjack is a communal experience. You get excited when when the dealer busts and everyone is winning money. And it's like, I went and played blackjack this past weekend, and it's not the same. It's not the same when you can't go and high five everyone and whoa, hey, the dealer busted, and I can yell at you for being a terrible blackjack player. That's part of the fun.
What you're forgetting is occasionally you will sit down at a table and there's a guy just chewing your ear off. All right. And that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, but occasionally
Never
a guy sits at your table who's Stugotz and busts for everybody because he refuses to play the simple mathematics.
Never
of the
play
game.
blackjack with me, Stugotz. I will yell at you
Stugotz
for
will hit
3
you every
hours.
time.
I won't be able to hear you. I got fiberglass in front of me.
I think it's plexiglass. I don't.
Whatever.
Can you see?
I think fiberglass is stuff you put in the attic back in
Can
the
you
day.
see through fiberglass? I'm no expert in these matters. I think he means plexiglass, and I'm telling you that gambling alone is sad. One of the saddest times in my life was those 45 minutes I went to Atlantic City thinking that gambling alone would be fun, and drove right back to Washington because I'm like, yes, oh my God, this is horrific.
I love it.
I think fiberglass is the glass that they make like ropes out of, and they give you splinters and they can like really screw you up. Isn't
Also,
that fiberglass?
you also use it for insulation, the pink stuff between the wall.
Right.
And pole vaulting poles.
Yes.
Can you, Chris Cody, as a degenerate of the highest order, sort of explain to us, for the audience that does not know, the Coconut Creek Casino? Because This is from a land forgotten. Okay. The walls deteriorated just by the sheer number of people who have gotten cancer there smoking cigarettes. Haunted by.
I didn't feel good about
No,
it.
you can, no, I'm trying to explain. I look, I'm sorry, Coconut Creek Casino, but this is by the standards of whatever it is your saddest roadside casinos are. This is a horror of the highest order, and I worry about Stugotz's mental well-being that he chose to play cards there by himself one day.
It's close to the house. The steakhouse happens to be good, and the casino is right next to the steakhouse, as Greg knows. And so, when in Rome, Dan? I mean,
so just explain this to me, Cody.
It's the furthest thing from
Cody,
Rome.
Did you drive 45 minutes to go to that steakhouse for a big date night out with your wife?
As a matter of fact, my wife was with me. The waiter happened to recognize me from the show, gave me extra good service. I up-tipped him. It was
What,
a great
18%.
That's right. It was a great experience all the way around. And by the way, I disagree that blackjack is a communal game. Craps is a communal game.
Yes.
For me, I play blackjack the way I want, and I don't play that often. I'm not that great. But if I have a feeling and I want to hit on a 16, why is that a crime? What's with all these
It
unwritten
affects
rules?
the deck. It
So
affects,
what?
It affects the next person's
Deck
card.
schmeck.
I mean,
There it is.
seriously.
Ladies
Feeling
and
and
gentlemen,
gut,
there
like
it
it's
is.
a, it's a
Well said.
numbers game.
No,
It is a statistical probability
No.
game.
Oh,
You
God.
play the
No.
numbers.
No,
You play to win the game.
You play your gut. It's your money.
Right.
Do with it what you want.
Oh,
okay. You play your
God.
gut. No. But here's the thing.
Witty.
No, I
Wait.
hit with that 16 and I go over, and then the dealer turns over their cards and they have a
You're
16,
playing
right?
probabilities, Stugots.
No, no.
You're playing cards.
You're playing
I
probabilities.
saw Witty on. Didn't you lose your ass off playing blackjack?
I did.
I mean, like, what are we
Oh,
doing
there?
here?
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, sometimes you lose playing the right way. It happens.
No,
More
here-
often, you're going to win playing the right way.
Here's what the situation is. Woody's over there counting cards. I'm over here counting money. That's what's happening.
Nice line there.
Wow.
This is what I love is the three allies. It is Chris Cody, Greg Cody, and Stugotz just simply allergic to information. Nope, I know.
Banded together by
listen,
ignorance.
I know what I know, and it doesn't matter. I understand that the entire table is going to be screaming at me. I don't care. I'm going to hit a 16 against a 5. I'm going to do it every time because that's who I am. Because bleep off, I'm selfish.
I love splitting sixes. There's nothing like you got to live dangerously.
What is
You're a
wrong
splitter.
with you?
You're a
You gotta
splitter.
live dangerously.
Splitting
I'll
sixes?
split. You give me anything, I'll split them.
Follow the gut.
He just wants more
Exactly.
money. He just wants. How do I
Sixes
make
is
more
the
money?
worst thing to
How do I
split.
A couple
double
of
up?
16s, a couple of sixes, cut it up.
16s? Why do you want
I love
16?
Scott saying to himself, how do I make this less fun for the table? I know. Let's double up the misery. Let's double up how mad you are at me. Let's split this. You think you're furious now? Watch this. You think I can't be more of an asshole? Watch. Watch all of you card counters.
Ulterior motive. He wants a table to himself. That's why he does.
Well, you split those sixes occasionally, Greg. It's a 5 and a 4. Then you're doubling down. That's where the action starts.
And
you
if
know
you're
what I'm saying?
and if you hit on your hunch, you are the genius. And
No,
everybody
you're
else
not.
is
You're
looking
still
at
an
you
idiot who's
with
happened to
envy.
have won.
With envy, they're looking at you.
Let's divide people here. This feels like an argument in the analytics community. I feel like I'm at the Sloan conference and Dumb and Dumber have walked in with Dumber's son. And they just infuriate everyone who has ever played blackjack. And the worst part about it is they do it with arrogant ignorance. It's like, yeah, do not care at all that I'm ruining this for the table. I got my fiberglass here.
I'm not there for the table. I'm there for me.
I know.
But the more annoying thing is the inconsistency in it. If you were like constantly aggressive, you're hitting when you shouldn't, that would be one thing. But it's like, all right, I'm going to stay on 14 against a 10,
Oh,
but I'm going to
God.
hit on 13 against a 6.
Different feeling.
Because I kind of feel like maybe there's a 7 under there. It just drives me mad.
Oh, you're just assuming there's a 10 under everything,
Well, but
okay?
that's the probability. There are more 10s.
Well, we're
than
thinking
any-
outside the box, Dan. There's more than just 10s. There's 3s.
Yep.
There's 4s.
Mhm.
There's
No, but there
5.
are
Sometimes
more-
I need a
there are
6, and
more-
I think a 6
Exactly.
is coming.
Yep.
Yeah. In a deck of cards, Dan, there's only 4 10s.
You. you.
No, there's not only 4 10s.
Yes, there are.
No,
16.
4 10s, 4 of everything.
In a
I
6-deck
mean,
2
shoot,
black
there's-
10s and 2 red 10s.
No, in a
Yeah,
6-deck
10s.
shoot, there are 24 10s. You're always
Ooh.
playing for a 10.
And there's 24 6s. I mean,
Exactly.
No,
No, there's
no.
6 6s
Trying to stay with,
and
I'm trying to stay
24
with you,
10s.
Stu. Trying to stay with you.
Stugotz.
We
They're-
can all agree the worst person, though, worse than the person that just is crazy with all their bets, the person that plays like 4 hands at once. They sit down one person, it's like, I'm going to play
they,
4
they
hands
like
here.
hog half the table.
Get over
Terrible.
yourself.
I do that.
Yeah, it's
I mean.
you guys. You
do that too?
Oh,
more
my
action.
God.
Yes, it's not enough
I have a
action.
heater in every
I-
ashtray.
You are evil.
You
Evil
think
person.
that I can make you doubly unhappy at this table? Watch this. You thought the worst I could do to you was double down and split 6s. Nope. No, I'm gonna play 4 hands and I'm gonna split all the 6s.
End up with 6 hands, and
It's a-
all of them are 17.
It's a little trickier now with the fiberglass, plexiglass, whatever it's called, to do that. But I did it. I did do it. I played 3 hands at once.
It's like Antoine Walker saying, "Why do you shoot so many 3s?" And he said, "Because there are no 4s." Why is it that Stugotz only plays 4 hands? Because they won't let him play 5. I think 4 is the maximum. You are the guy everyone hates to gamble with, Stugotz, and you're sitting here begging for fiberglass to separate you from others that you think
From the hatred.
are
From the
annoying.
punches.
Stugotz wants to wander the earth with an insulation against I'm an asshole, so therefore I don't want to deal with anyone reacting to me being an asshole.
There's plenty of tables at a casino. I mean, if you don't like what I'm doing, pick another.
Can you take me through, please, what was happening in your life that you made the decision? You know where I'm going to go? I'm going to go to the Coconut. Was it during the day? The Coconut Creek
No,
Casino?
but I've been there during the day.
Okay, but like, what,
It's even
so
sadder.
it's at night. You're saying maybe I'll get a nice steak on the side.
Big night out in the town at the Coconut Creek Casino.
So what happens at the Coconut Creek Casino, and Greg, you can attest to this. Dan, the steakhouse is really good. It's the nicest thing at that casino. It's really good. It's brand new. The food is
But
delicious.
that's not saying much.
And then there's the rest of the place. Okay? So you start there because you want to have a nice dinner with your wife, and then you have a couple of drinks, and then all of a sudden you want to play, you want to play some cards, and that's what we did.
Right. Restaurants upscale,
Yep.
casinos low scale.
Yeah.
You know,
How far is it from your home, Cody?
it's a little north of me. It's probably a half hour from me. I don't go there often, because we've got the Seminole Hard Rock, which I go to. That's
Have
what
you seen an act there? Like any shows?
I have
that-
actually.
Right.
Oh, this should be good.
No, they have some great shows.
This
there.
should be good. Let's see what we've got here. Let's see, because the act making its way to the dog track at the tail end of the career, the casino can book some acts here from the past that are magical. Who did you see there?
This was actually a great act. It was a reggae act, Toots and the Maytals, and this was like a year before Hibbert Toots died. So I got to see that group.
They were great. I
were great,
I
yeah.
actually ventured to the Miami equivalent of that dog track to see Toots in the main.
Did you? Aren't they great?
Yes.
Oh, God, I
they
adore them.
were. Yes.
Dad, you couldn't have given us a better name there.
Like
the
Brian
sadder
Adams.
name, yeah.
I mean, I'm truthing it.
Truthing it.
That's who he is at his core. Greg Cody. Why don't you have a back in my day today?
It's a quality control week.
QC.
Is that different than the QK that we spoke
Right.
of earlier?
That is different.
Because I feel like the QC and the QK when it comes to the back in my day is you taking a quick crap on the show.
It's quality control. I mean, you know what that means. You don't want to dilute the product.
Greg, what about
maintain.
my idea for a back in my day? Did you like that idea that I gave you when I came on your podcast?
He probably
Uh,
forgot to write it down.
I like it so much I can't recall it.
Damn it.
Text me. Don't say it aloud because other people will do it.
I won't say it.
Okay.
No, he
Who else
someone
is
might
doing
steal
back
it.
in my days?
I don't know.
He probably has it written down on just a little piece of paper in his office, which he
Yeah.
always does when I tell him, Dad, put it in your notepad in your cell phone so you can actually look back on this. And he just writes it on a little scrap piece of paper, and then Lord knows what happens. to it.
Right. I do that. Yellow legal pad. Miniature, though. I like the small legal pad.
Ask
Really?
Crack, would you call your
True
mother, please?
journalist.
I'd like to talk to her again just about what a general exasperation he is. What are we doing with our Brill Cream advertising? I would think that Brill Cream and the Barbershop Quartet would be a ripe place for you to spend some time longing for commercials from the 50s.
Right. That's not a bad idea.
How do you run out of ideas? Honestly,
Grill
like how have you given? Honestly, when you have to have one idea a week, and you're like, nope, too much, too much. It's too much for me.
You may or may not know I've been doing back in my day since 2014, and after 6-7 years, the topics are tougher because I can tell you truthfully, 90% of the suggestions I get, whether it's from people I know or on Twitter, I've done in some form.
So you've run out of ideas.
I don't like to put it like that because that conveys.
But it seems impossible.
A columnist should never run out of ideas, right? A columnist has to have an idea usually in his prime 4 times a week.
Well, 4 times a week is pushing it. I do 3 columns a week, and I'm never want for an idea. But in the case of back in my days, it's tougher. It's tougher. Half the ideas you suggest to me, I've done before.
I mean, and when you're a sports columnist, you're writing off the back of things that have happened in sports. These are life observations. So Greg,
that's all of life at your disposal, as opposed to just sports. It's
and
all
time keeps moving, so there's always going to be a past.
Thank you, Billy. You're so right about this. I don't feel like it's too big of an ask,
right,
to say once a week. Can you have an idea? I think it's like the bare minimum on what the standard is in creativity. Imagine
Even on a QC week, though?
But listen, imagine me going to anyone in our audience who has a real job and says to that person who has a real job, here's your job this week. One idea. No, sorry. I'm sorry. It's too hard. I cannot do it. I've been doing this since 2014. This whole having of an idea for a week, and I'm tired.
Oh, I just came up with a back in my day idea. Being overworked. You're asking me to do too much. If I do 2
once a week,
if I do 3 back in my days a month, I have a quality control week. We pause, we reset.
But John Oliver does his show every week. He does his show every week, and he does have the occasional quality control week, just not as often as you.
Once a month.
He's got a writer's room too, Dan. I mean, John Oliver is not coming up with all that on his own.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Is the suggestion that we all need to pitch in back in my days to help Greg here? Do we need to be the writer's room?
I think that's what
I did suggest one, but I think Greg kind of dropped the ball on that.
All right, text me what it was, and I'll get back to you on that. People think I have a writing staff to help me. I don't have a research staff. That's why occasional errors will show up in my column.
Would you welcome a writing staff?
I mean, as long as it's an unpaid writing staff.
He's always wanted a staff. That's why he says he wants to be president of the United States.
What happened to his walking staff?
It's the reason he. That's right. Were we going to buy him a walking staff? I thought we were.
Wait, that's a great back in my day idea. Back in my day, you could just hire a writing staff and not pay them. And now you have to give them health insurance and benefits and pay them a livable wage.
I long to delegate.
I want to hear more about this, Dan. He's always wanted some sort of staff.
You've heard this 2 or 3 times. He said he wanted to be president of the United States just so he could have a staff. We were talking about whether or not any one of us would actually want to be president of the United States, and you said so. You said you wanted to be so for the power and the power to corrupt.
Well, just to make the Super Bowl on Saturday.
That too.
Yes.
And he said he wanted to be just so that he can have a staff. But an idea he did have this week, and this was stunning to me, as he is not a hot take artist, but he is ripping one of the dogs at the Westminster Dog Show. Greg Cody believes that what is your objection to the Westminster Dog Show?
Well,
Wasabi is the name of the dog?
Wasabi, which is a cool name for a nerd dog. The Westminster Kennel Dog Show Best in Show, which is the grand prize, was won by a little Pekingese. And if you know Pekingese, they're the small yappy lap dog, and normally groomed, they're okay. They're just a homely little dog. But this one was one of those ones where the fur all grew out, and so what it looked like was a square pillow with an angry face on it. It's just I swear, Google Wasabi the dog, and you'll see exactly what I mean. It's a crazy thing to look at.
What exactly is a nerd dog?
A nerd dog is a small yappy dog that really doesn't serve any sort of a utilitarian purpose. It's not a sporting dog. It's not a manly dog, if I can use that phrase.
It's a decorative dog. It's not a hunter. It's not going to do anything for you. It's just it's basically a handbag of a pet. It's an accessory.
Right. It's a frivolous dog. It's unnecessary, to be honest.
So you are objecting to who won Best in Show?
Yes. Right.
Okay. So you're saying it was an ugly dog that won Best in Show?
I hate to be that harsh. It's the dog is not my cup of tea.
I believe you called it an ugly pillow with an angry face.
Right.
I believe
that's exactly what it was.
But
It's
you
a
don't
bit
want to
scary.
be that harsh.
I'm calling the pillow ugly, not the dog, in a manner of speaking.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Batard Show. Is Wasabi a great name for a dog? And is the winner of the Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show a dog that looks like an ugly pillow with an angry face?
Right. That better win in a landslide. And I apologize to all the Pekingese owners. My intent is not to get anybody mad at me. I'm a dog guy. Just buried my dog, as a matter of fact, so you could have a little sympathy for me. But Pekingese, poodles, not in love with that type of breed.
My condolences.
Thank you.
He's done this a couple of times now where he throws the dead fish of his dead dog into the middle of the show, and it's an aside and it's gratuitously, and we're having a good time, and next thing you know, he's burying his dog.
Right.
And that visual is in the middle of what we're doing as a show.
But
and
I feel like he's doing it comedically, though. I feel like now at this point he's trolling us and he's trying to do it because he knows that it's like that.
I think he's just fishing for sympathies. I think that your father loves attention so much that he'll take it however it is that he can get it. And now the visual, I mean, it is sad to bury a pet.
Right.
And this was a surprise, right?
It wasn't very unexpected.
It wasn't even you had not been prepared for this at all. But now here we are. The show has been dragged into the grief of the burying.
I'm sad now
of the burying of his dog.
Too.
Yeah,
I can't get out of it. How do I get out of it?
Riley was a great girl, beautiful girl. She wagged her tail for the last time and then collapsed. The upside is that I saved $2,700 because the knee surgery would have cost about $4,500, and the ritual of the preoperative test that determined she had a malignant inoperable tumor cost less than that. So.
Save $4,000.
Back in my day,
Right.
you put dogs down for free.
It costs money to die nowadays. Believe me.
So you decided
cheap.
to talk about your dead dog and you wax poetic laws. You're ready to go into a nice tribute to your dog, Riley. And the upshot is saving $2,700.
Look,
you got to find the positive.
I'm telling you, you got to see the ray of sunshine in the gloom. Otherwise, what is life? As George Harrison said.
Right.
By the way, Greg, poodles are hunting dogs. Did you know that?
What do they hunt? Cockroaches? What's a poodle gonna hunt? Are you kidding me?
Put it on the poll, Guillermo. What does a poodle hunt? Cockroaches. And
Good Lord.
one word, does it cost money to die nowadays? I'm telling you.
I love him so much.
It's, hey, listen, you get to be my age, and half of your mail is from the Neptune Society. I mean, it's not an easy thing getting old. Christ. Neptune Society. Please.
This is how you get out of it.
I rip them up. I don't even bring them in the house. I don't want to depress my wife. Like we need a reminder how old we are. You know, the minute here's a quiz, something none of you know here except me.
Here comes a quick back in my day. Look what happens when he gets going and he starts thinking. Here we go. Ready?
Wait, but this is something none of us know.
No, alive back in my day right here.
Yeah, Batard will know this in a couple of years. The minute you turn 55, you start getting old people mail. I mean the day you turn 55, you start getting, AAA.
It is time
Hold
to
on.
take a trip
Hold
down
on.
memory
No,
lane.
this is not
Here's your
a-
guy, Greg Putty,
Hold
with
on,
Back in My Day.
The rare, it's a little of a jazz riff.
No, I mean,
go.
okay, all right. The minute you turn, it's annoying to me because you turn 55, suddenly you feel old, and yet you get the Neptune Society. What's the old person group?
AARP.
Yeah, AARP. You start getting mail from them, and I'm not, and funeral homes and cemeteries. The minute you turn 55, so that's what you have to look forward to, Batard, in a couple of years.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo, at Batard Show. Do you have to look forward to funeral mail and cemetery mail
Right.
the day you turn 55.
I look forward to it.
And everything's so expensive. Good
I've gotten
Lord.
it.
What?
Yeah.
How old
I've
are
gotten
you?
it. I'm turning 37, and I've gotten AARP.
Have you really?
Yes.
Do they have a junior division? What's going on?
I don't know. It's for their insurance, so
He's so happy.
He is so happy
37.
and miserable. And again, I just want everyone to enjoy that this began as a riff on him having to bury his dog. And then the next thing you know, but at least I saved a little money on knee surgery.
You know, I mean, $2,700 is nothing to sneeze at. You know, I should build a memorial for Riley. I actually have a memorial for the dog in my backyard, by the way. What I did was the last tennis ball that Riley ever threw in the backyard, I found in the corner of the backyard. And so I covered it I put it in string and hung it from my bamboo tree in the backyard. So a solitary little ball hangs there. And my wife the other day says, "What the hell is that?" And I had to explain it, and she acted like it was not the sentimental gesture that I meant it to be. But I'll never remove that tennis ball.
I want to
tell you
talk to her about this. I want to get her on the phone right now, and I want her to rank what, in terms of her husband's weirdnesses, turning a tennis ball into a tombstone that hangs in the backyard to his wife's mortification.
That was the cheapest of the options, right?
Well, yes, it cost me nothing.
He didn't want to have a funeral.
Right.
Hey, I'm surprised he didn't put a pineapple up there. That just did $3.99 with a set of Mac. He didn't want to put that up there. Let's get his wife on the phone. I would love to know her reaction to seeing that tennis ball. Like she turns to a 65-year-old child.
Beautiful thing.
And says what?
Well, she had no idea what it was. She's looking from the kitchen. And she's like, "What is that hanging from the..." She never calls it a bamboo tree. Doesn't even know it's a bamboo tree. She says, "What is that hanging from that thing?" And I had to explain to her that it's a tennis ball. And she says, "Why is there a tennis ball hanging from that tree?" And so I had to explain it to her. I think it's a sentimental gesture, a loving gesture by me.
It is.
So do I.
It is.
Yes.
But why does your wife not understand this?
I don't know. You know, it was my dog, if you know what I'm talking about.
See, now we got at it.
Okay.
See, now we got now the resentment.
My dog. I'm a dog man.
Yeah, right up until it cost me $2,700. Then I'm wishing for its death.
No, $45 on a knee I was getting ready to spend on that dog. The left hind leg. She limped terribly. Couldn't even chase a tennis ball anymore. Couldn't jump up on the bed without help. I had to lift her hind quarters. It was pretty pathetic in the last month of her life. But that tennis ball was the last one she sprinted afterwards. Probably led to her bum knee.
Chris, I'm trying.
The way
Chris,
he says things, I'm laughing. But
Chris,
it's my
I'm
dog.
trying to get to the joke at the end of the segment. So he has no idea. He's just grieving and lamenting and laughing and saving money. I need the joke, and he keeps dragging me right back into the tears in his eyes. Like, I need the payoff to end the segment. Can you give it to us, or are you just going to keep going to the burying the goddamn dog?
Because we've had it 4 times now.
We need the ending to the segment, and you keep dragging us into your grief. Can you help us?
It's your show. What do you want from me? Ending. It's not a novel.
He's
it's
giving
real
you
life.
enough, Dan. Right.
I mean, this is real life misery here. You know, lose a dog. You lost a dog. You should have sympathy for me. People ask me, "Are you going to get another dog?" I'm saying it's too soon.
Is that the ending?
Yeah. It's real life, man.
I don't need real life here. I need an ending to the segment.
Brill cream, a little devil, do ya?
Have a lot of questions for Ron McGill this week. Let's start with a couple from yesterday, Ron, and thank you for making the time for us. First question: if someone were indeed swallowed by a whale or in the mouth of a whale, the way that someone from Cape Cod alleges, but Billy questions the story, what would that feel like? What would that be like? Why doesn't it happen more often? Is there a way to extract yourself from that situation?
Well, it doesn't happen more often because whales are not, at least the baleen whales, like he's talking about, like humpback whale, the big whales, do not feed on people. That might have been just a whale playing, for whatever the case may be. If you're in the mouth of a whale, there's really nothing that you can do, I don't think, that's going to get you out of the mouth of the whale unless the whale wants to release you. Again, from the description of what I heard, this whale seemed to be playing with this guy. Grabbed this guy, then all of a sudden kind of breached to the surface and threw the guy up in the water and gave him a little bit of a ride, a bit of a scare. He dislocated his knee. But if that whale wanted to hurt him, it would have hurt him. I think he just looked at him as a plaything. So again, very, very rare. I've known many, many people in the water with lots of baleen whales, humpback whales, minke whales, things like that. Never had anything like that happen. I think it's a handful of occurrences over recorded history where that's happened.
But hypothetically, if you found yourself in this spot, and I'm not really trying to be ridiculous here, would you suggest that somebody kind of curl up and try to protect themselves? Or would you suggest maybe just start flailing, trying to punch things, trying to like pinch them, make them throw up essentially? You want to make the whale throw up.
You're not going to make the whale throw up. Understand your size, understand the size of the whale. The jawbone alone is twice your body length, okay? So if you're in the mouth of the whale, you're going to be flailing and screaming as much as you can because understand you're underwater. Unless you got a scuba tank on and you have your regulator in your mouth, you're not breathing. You have very limited time. So I'd be panicking, screaming, do whatever the heck I can, pinch, grab, whatever
flailing,
I can.
exactly. Thank you, Ron.
Yes, that's what I would be doing because you're underwater. You can't breathe, okay? This thing's grabbed you. If you're in the mouth, if it swallows you, you're dead. This is not Pinocchio, okay? So if it swallows you, you're dead. But the best thing you can do is get it to release you, and you be flailing all you can. None of this play dead stuff because then you're going to be dead.
Jessica was saying yesterday that she does not believe that we are the smartest in the animal kingdom, that humans are not the smartest necessarily. What say you, Ron McGill?
It all depends on a person's description of intelligence. I have said for years on this show that I think a lot of the cetaceans, dolphins, bottlenose dolphins, for instance, have an incredible amount of intelligence. Same thing with elephants. And when you look at the brain size compared to their body size, it is very similar to humans. In some cases, bigger than humans, a bigger brain. So I think, apples to apples, yes, I think there are maybe an animal or two that are more intelligent in their capacity to do things with their brains than humans are.
But Ron, we invented Netflix.
The question.
Is that a question or is that?
It's an excellent question.
How many animals have a Netflix or even a Hulu or an iPhone or hoverboards or any of that stuff?
When's the last time a dolphin made breaded chicken?
How many human beings could swim underwater with nothing else and be able to find things, use radar to find things, find bombs for that matter, find torpedoes, find submarines for that matter without any kind of equipment? How many human beings can go up to another human being and smell them and say, you have cancer, or you have this, or you have that? How many human beings can do that? Okay, again, intelligence is respected.
But you're describing physical capabilities.
Yeah.
Now we understand we don't have radar abilities. You know what we did, Ron? We built radar so we can do it ourselves. We understand our limitations and we overcome them because of the power of the human spirit.
Okay, we can agree to disagree on that. Again, I'm saying that intelligence is subjective. If you're talking about intelligence, being able to create things or being able to survive, the brain, the capacity of the brain to do things, I think in many animals is stronger than humans. Bottom line, that's it. I mean, I've watched orangutans take a piece of wire and pick a lock. All right. So don't think that we're all that. We're not all that.
I agree with you, Ron. I think you're making great points. I think that this crew tends to judge other animals based off of human standards, like, oh, can you invent Netflix? And we don't judge animals on animal standards, like, oh, can you camouflage yourself to hide from predators? That's something humans can't do, but we don't consider that something intelligent. We just try to compare, apples to oranges, like you said.
I think it's all a matter of survival. I think that, you can put an animal and a human being in a pretty much devastating situation, and many animals will outthink human beings in being able to survive that situation.
Let him know the second part of the great point you made about the genius squid society that lives deep down in the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, squids are incredible. I mean, all of those animals are unbelievable. Think about what they can do, how they can change color, how they can camouflage. It's incredible, guys. We don't know more than we know about these animals. And that's the point I'm trying to make.
It's a fine point. You also compared picking a lock to putting someone on the moon. Like
humans use keys to open locks.
If I had the ability to camouflage, I would do it. I mean, I don't have that ability.
That's criminal behavior by the orangutan.
Pick a lock. Pick a lock versus.
I'm just saying that you guys are oversimplifying intelligence. I think that when I was talking about intelligence, I'm talking about the capability of the brain to do things. Okay. Now, yes, okay, we can figure out how to send a man to the moon. But in survival ways, you know what? If you get a guy who designed the computer that can send a guy to the moon, and you got to put him in a place where there is no food or water, you can't find anything, and you have an animal that knows how to find it, what would you rather be? Would you rather be the guy who knows how to build a computer, or would you rather be the animal that knows how to survive?
Fair enough. But if I have a brain problem, I'd rather be a human being doing the surgery than a porpoise. If I have a problem and I need to continue to survive in a different way.
Excellent points.
Because
yep.
I don't want to put it on the poll, Billy.
Ron, would you let a shark operate on you? I think is what Dan's getting to.
This is just a ridiculous conversation.
What?
Ron is correct, and I am correct, for the record, because Ron and I are in agreement. Giant squids, very smart. We aren't the smartest people on Earth, and we're the smartest things on Earth just because we invented Netflix.
The breaded chicken, though.
I think that statement alone tends to validate my point.
Billy, don't you have an assortment of questions from Ron McGill? You said you were ready for him today.
Well, no, I've been just jotting down things. Ron, how do we know turtles are actually 200 years old? Because a lot of people tell us these turtles are 200 years old. And sometimes I forget how old I am. And I know that no human lives to be 200 years old. I lose my parking validation. So how are we actually keeping track of the age of turtles?
Well, on some turtles, just like you look at the rings on a tree, okay, if you cut the trunk of a tree, you count the rings, turtles have the same rings on their scutes. So they can be counted. Now, sometimes when they get so old, those rings get worn down, so much it's almost impossible to count them. But we do have records of turtles that we know when they hatched and they're still alive 150 years later. So we know for a fact they can live at least 150 years because we have documented when they hatched out and we've cared for them and we know they're still alive today. But again, to your first question, you can count the rings on the scute of some turtles, and just like the rings in a tree will tell you the age of the turtle.
Hey, Ron, in the Tampa Zoo, a southern white rhino baby was just born. How valuable is the role of zoos in growing a species from near extinction or endangerment to a healthy status?
Well, Greg, I'm going to be real honest with you. Zoos serve as an insurance policy against a very uncertain future in the wild. Having said that, I don't want to come across as people saying, oh, we have these animals in zoos so we can release them back in the wild, because that rarely happens. Very rarely happens. Only a handful of animals, California condor, Arabian oryx, black-footed ferret, have been successfully released back in the wild where the species has been saved by zoos. But having said that, by breeding these animals in under human care, they don't like you to say in captivity anymore. I know it's just a matter of semantics, but the bottom line is by breeding them under human care, you have an insurance policy. God forbid something happens to the wild population where we don't have control because they're tearing up all this native habitat. They're poaching animals for their horns, all ridiculous kinds of things. You have basically kind of a library, a bank of genetic material that you can keep alive. And if the push comes to shove, you can then try to reintroduce them back in the wild. But again, and by caring for these animals under human care, we learn how to better take care of them in the wild. When they come up with diseases or problems in the wild, by caring for them here in captivity, we know how to apply the knowledge we gain from those animals to care for their wild counterparts in the wild.
Ron, how do you feel about dog shows and professional breeding, and what exactly went wrong with the breeding of bulldogs?
The problem with breeding any animal for a certain trait is that it lends itself to inbreeding. It lends itself to things that become cosmetic instead of healthy for the animal. You know, the bulldog is a classic example. Here you have an animal that has consistent, nasal problems. It has consistent breathing problems. Some of these animals have been bred just to accentuate a trait that we find attractive, but is unhealthy for the dog. You know, hip dysplasia you see in a lot of these dogs that have been inbred just to get a certain trait. I'm not a big fan of, these purebred breeding down a line. It's almost like a lot of times, if you look way back in the royal lines of even human beings, they inbred so much that they weren't the healthiest people in the world. So what you need to do is you need to understand that probably the best dog you could ever get a hold of is a mutt. Okay, mutts are the greatest dogs, just like people with all different kinds of backgrounds. All the genetic material put together usually makes the healthiest person. So I understand the purpose of having an animal that reflects a certain breed, but sometimes the breeding goes too far, and I think sometimes that is not in the best interest of the animal.
Rod, my wife has been begging me to ask you this for a couple of weeks now, because she swears it's so. If my dog sees me on the television, will my dog recognize me?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, we'll recognize you and especially recognize your voice.
Wow. Okay.
I've seen that happen on occasion. My dog used to do that all the time. If I was doing a news piece or something, I was always told my wife, "Oh yeah, I watched it." He saw you, immediately perked up and stared at the television. So recognized.
Okay. Tony, what do you have for Ron McGill?
Hey, Ron. I live in the Kendall area, and there are these huge lizards that have now been taking over, and I see them all over South Miami. Billy's shaking his head because he has them over there too in Westchester. Like, what are these lizards, and why are they everywhere?
Are you talking about the dark blue ones with the orange heads?
Yes.
Yes, the agamas. They are an agama. They come from Africa. They're everywhere because they originally came from Africa, but people kept them as pets. They got away or they released them. They got here in Florida, and Florida with no natural real predators for those agamas. It was like being in Club Med. And the males met the females, and from then on, that's all you had to write. They live in a perfect habitat here for these lizards, and you're going to see more and more of them as they start expanding throughout the state.
Ron, I had a couple conversations with different people about ticks yesterday because there were a bunch of tick scares. What purpose do ticks serve?
Well, they serve as food for a lot of animals. An animal that loves to eat ticks, which is why I try to tell people they're such good animals, are possums. People look at possums and they think they're big, ugly rats. First of all, they're not rats at all. They're the only marsupial that lives in the United States. They're pouched animals. They have a little pouch where the females keep their babies in a pouch. But the thing that's real important about them is not only do they eat garbage and dead things, they love ticks. They will feast on ticks. Those are like raisins to possums. So ticks serve as a form of food for a lot of animals. The bad part of them is, of course, they can spread disease. They can spread things like Lyme disease, and that's a bad thing. So I put ticks in the same category as mosquitoes. The good that they serve is they serve as a food item for a lot of animals.
Ron, you were very moved by our audience and the bidding on making your endowment more substantive. Your photo, a rare one of a mother tiger and her cub, sold for a lot of money on our Freedom Marathon. Who is it that we have to thank for that? There were a lot of listeners who participated, but who do we have to thank for the big bid?
A lot of bidders, but Jacob Hankins from Springfield, Missouri. He bid $7,900 for this thing, which is unbelievable. He did it in honor of his dog. His dog's name is Jude. It's a 9-year-old Chihuahua. This guy is an animal lover. He's a big believer in Missouri. He wanted me to make sure I tell you, Dan, to take Missouri out of your mouth. Don't ever say a bad thing about Missouri again. He did that for Missouri. He did that for Jude. The guy's an upstanding guy. He loves animals. He also did it because he knew you were going to get one for Val in the same way, which you did. And listen, it was just a win-win for everybody. This guy, Jacob, he paid right away. I thought it was I said, this guy's not going to pay. He paid right away. He was just so upstanding about, again, his Chihuahua Jude, and make sure that Missouri is held in high esteem from now on the Batard Show.
Yeah, good job on Missouri, but still, fuck Mississippi.
Okay, very good. Wow, very strong.
Impressive, yes.
Ron, thank you for being on with us. We'll talk to you next week, sir.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Take care.
Thank you, Ron.
We've got a few guests coming up here over the course of the next few days. Okay, Bubba Wallace is going to be here in about 10 minutes, and we got Dale Hughley today. I want to talk to him for a number of different reasons, Stugotz, but that world, I think if you've been listening to this show for a while, that I am fascinated by the very, very tiny world that births these comrades in comedy. There's just so few of them, Stugotz, where it's like over the course of decades, coming out of almost a single room in California, you've got this very small circle of jumble of entertainment and insecurity doing one of the hardest things, if not the hardest thing in entertainment, getting up there and doing stand-up, where you're just the expectation for funny, Stugotz. We've got a Brockmire podcast coming out with Joe Buck, and it is great. I think it's the best one of the Brockmire podcasts I've heard, because Joe Buck, when he got to Brockmire, he was so good at it that they had to rewrite character around him because he was so natural and effortless at being funny and clever. And I found interesting, we were talking earlier about HBO and HBO getting out of the boxing business. HBO is the standard right now for the highest form of whatever television is, and it's been that way for a while. And twice they've been scarred, quote unquote, burned by going to get the popular sports guy to try and get younger, because Brian Gumbel and HBO Real Sports, it's an older show. HBO Sports wants to get younger. They did it with Joe Buck. They did it with Bill Simmons. They got scarred by both. Joe Buck got in front with the expectation of funny in front of an audience, lasted 2 shows because he got eviscerated by Artie Lang. And I don't know whether HBO is going to get back into that game. They've done Kenny Powers, they've done Arliss, but they haven't done that much stuff that's good in sports. And Joe Buck specifically fell under the burden of the expectation of funny. And so I'm looking forward to talking to DL Hughley about this world, right? Because it's just so small. It's Joe Rogan's world. It's this, it's 100, 200 people. They all know each other. I'm surprised that for what a hissing, acidic radiator Bill Burr is, he's super gentle around the other comedians. Like, he doesn't, because he knows that world and how sensitive it can be. He's super gentle there when respecting whatever it is that he says about other comedians, because they all know
he relates well.
How hard that thing is to do as a career. Imagine deciding without a safety net, you know how I'm going to make my career? I'm going to get on a stage with nothing but my ideas, as we asked Greg Cody to come up with one a week. And he's like, too much. You're asking me to work too hard. I'm going to make a career off it. You're going to have the expectation of funny, and I'm going to deliver it enough to have people pay me over a great deal of time to make a career at this. Only they understand that. It's however many guys or women it is. It ain't many of them. And so I want to talk to him because he comes from that world. He knows, they all know each other because the specifics of the career are so unique to just them, right? It's another level. It's not just artists or actors or models going to LA. It's, I'm going to make money off of making you laugh. You're going to expect me to make you laugh, and I'm going to exceed your expectations, making a career that way. I find them endlessly fascinating.
What a stressful way, when you really think about it, to make a career. Like, perhaps one of the most stressful ways, because, Dan, it doesn't work for most, right?
You think it's weird that I'm obsessed with boxing and mixed martial arts, and it's because I admire the courage in it. And when it comes to stand-up comics, there's a bravery in it that I can't summon. I want to reduce the expectations on funny so I could leap over a small bar. I don't want you to walk into the place, pay, sit in the front row, and then everything I'm doing there comes with the expectation of I have to be even funnier than you think I am.
Especially when the consequences for failing are you standing in front of a group of people, everyone in the room understands that this isn't going well, and you have to sink into that, presumably at times for an hour, right? Just keep going and going again on, I'm trying to make you laugh, it's not working, and 7 minutes in, you have 53 minutes left to go, and no one's laughing at this material.
It's what made Eddie Murphy so great at it, where you were expecting not just funny, the funniest of the funny. And he exceeded it every single time.
But it's
when he
all
did
of them,
stand-up.
Stugotz. It's not, you're talking about Eddie Murphy as if there haven't been 30 comedians in the last few years.
Certain there have.
In all the time since, right? That Eddie Murphy, wherever it is that you would rank Eddie Murphy, I think everybody would put him behind Richard Pryor as the first to this particular buffet. And there aren't many of them. Like, when you're talking about these guys, how many are you talking about? When you're talking about the highest levels of stand-up comedy, are you talking about 20 people? The highest levels? Or is it even that many?
I'm not even certain it's that many. Like you're talking George Carlin, right? Like Eddie Murphy. I think you'd have a hard time naming 15, to be honest. I don't think 20.
And so there's a second tier, right? I don't think D.L. Hughley would put himself in that class, but he does understand that world. And to me, it's an endlessly interesting world. I don't understand why I haven't been able to find, I know I've told you this story a couple of different times, the specifics of Chris Rock and Jerry Seinfeld talking about how they don't understand the genius of Bill Cosby, that they simply don't understand, not sculpting every single syllable because you know the laughs come after and the symbol for boron. You know that the thing that you're saying, the phrase that you're saying, you know to stop because it's always where the laughs are, that Bill Cosby could do it without sculpting it. Chris Rock was such a bad actor. I don't even know if has he gotten to be a good actor? On Saturday Night Live, he was reading cue cards in a way that was obvious, and his act was sculpted to the syllable.
Well, he's starting to become a dramatic actor now with Fargo and everything. But I think it's the storytelling aspect of Bill Cosby that's actually very excellent. It's something that Dave Chappelle has now started to perfect, is telling a story and being funny while telling a story.
Chris Rock is now in this new Saw movie. So he did. I did not watch the 4th season of Fargo. Was he good in it? I have not yet watched that.
I haven't seen it either, but I've heard that he was excellent.
Are you surprised that he's in Saw? Are you surprised to see Chris Rock taking a dramatic turn in the latest Saw movie that has?
I'm actually not, because I'll give you an example. That would be New Jack City. That was not a comedic performance by Chris Rock. That was him playing a junkie.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
he was actually very good in that movie.
But that was 20 years ago. That was in terms of 20 years ago. More than that? New Jack City. That's like when we were introduced to Chris Rock in the movie.
Exactly 20 years ago. I mean, not to the day, but it was 1991. 30 years ago.
Yeah, 30. Yeah, so not exactly.
Long time ago.
Math.
Nailed it. I mean, you said 20. I mean, you were off by a decade.
Why are you lashing out at me? What did I do that?
Well, you knew it was 91. You did the math wrong, and then I came in to support you. You didn't support me back. I mean, that's it. I got it wrong. You could have supported me.
All I did was
I don't deserve your support. It's a terrible mistake.
I was just silent. It wasn't an absence of support. It was silent long enough for you, of all people, to do the math and realize, oh, I'm off by 10 years.
Yeah. Your silence spoke volumes, though.
Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Did Dan's silence speak volumes? I want to talk again about this athletic story because as Mark Cuban denies it, and as there is now a story that the Mavericks have a shadow GM, and he's not just the shadow GM, he's Bob Voulgaris, who spotted market inefficiencies in gambling, in poker, spotted inefficiencies in gambling on sporting events, has spotted market inefficiencies when it comes to cryptocurrency, is viewed as somebody who was hired by the Mavericks because he knows things that others don't. And he was not brought in as a GM. He was brought in sort of, I thought, in the kind of role that the Knicks assigned to Worldwide Wes, which is just sort of be, and different skill sets, obviously, but just be around our program, and you're not going to have the title of being in charge, but you're going to be a power broker. Mark Cuban has been ahead of the game at every turn, has he not, in terms of finding things in business that can be exploited?
He has.
Whether it's broadcast. I mean, he missed on Uber. He told us that was one of the investments that he should have made that he didn't. But he's somebody who is trying to be out ahead. If you're in a salary cap sport, you have to find winning in the margins because he's got a star. That's where you have to start in that sport. Do you have a star? He's got a star. And now this report that he is denying vigorously says that his star front office guy, who is good at finding value, is bumping up against Luka so that how old is Luka now? 22? Is he 22 yet? He's 21 or 22. He's ridiculously talented.
He's indeed 22.
For his age. His first 8 games in the playoffs were the numbers were totally insane. No one, he's in that Lillard sphere where we've already seen the shots for playoff games, Stugotz, from half court.
Yeah.
He's in the
He's got
Lillard,
all the
he's in the
shots,
Lillard
right.
sphere of whatever. If they're losing, it ain't his fault. It's got to be somebody else.
Right.
We all know everyone wants that guy on their team. It's the greatest thing you can have in sports is a treasure, young promise that you know is guaranteed, if not for injury. That's going to be great for a decade. My team's going to be great for a decade. It's the best thing I've had since Dirk when I was winning championships. But now Mark Cuban, who's always ahead of things, has the star, but he also has in the shadows one of the great mystery figures across sports. This guy is someone who's talked about the same way that they were talking about that guru that Belichick has next to him, where it's just he doesn't have a role in the organization that anyone understands, doesn't know what he's doing, but he's doing something to exploit inefficiency, seeing things that you don't see. What is this story? Because the Mavericks are denying it. And these are two central figures in that sport because Voulgaris is ahead of the data crunch. Like he's the guy.
Yeah, but Luka's the player, Dan, and that's far more important. I mean, I don't care about the data crunch. Luka's the player who's unhappy, according to this report, with Bob Voulgaris and his existence inside that organization. And Luka's got to win that fight. He has to. He's the player. He's more valuable.
I'm not asking you about who's going to win the fight. I'm asking you if that report can be accurate, given that he would be gone already in any organization if you have a star of Luka. Like, what's happening there that's real about the friction between them? What are the details reported and true as Cuban denies this, that Cuban would allow anyone in his front office to run counter to the wishes of Luka?
So the reports were he was brought in for one thing, and now he's taken a kind of a stranglehold on the organization where he is writing up the lineups, the rotations, the free agents they should go out and get. He's almost coaching the team. And Luka's like, hey, we have a coach. He's pretty good. His name's Rick Carlisle, and I like him. And so that's kind of the rub right there.
Now, the thing is like Dallas traded up to go get Luka Doncic, right? And Atlanta has been crucified for trading out of that position. Presumably someone within the organization identified Luka Doncic to go and acquire because he would be an incredible acquisition. And the idea that there's brain power behind that is what I think that fight is, right? If Bob Voulgaris said, go get Luka, I think could be the best player in this draft, then presumably there is going to be some repetitive skill and perhaps finding another player who will be of Luka's quality to help pair him with. So there is like some brain power within an organization that is required, and Mark Cuban clearly values that.
Jessica, you're muted. We cannot hear you, but Bubba Watson has entered the room. Go ahead, Bubba Wallace, excuse me. Go ahead. What were you saying, Jessica?
I don't know why we're questioning the reporting just because Mark Cuban is denying it. It's in his best interest to deny it. And we've seen a similar situation play out on the Texans where the people in charge are kind of cronies and they like each other, so they keep each other around, even though the star player isn't happy with the way things are being run in the front office.
The only reason I'm questioning the reporting is only because I feel like we can always report a locker room schism in any locker room ever over anything, just workplace dynamic.
One of the other elements is Voulgaris is always out there next to Cuban, sitting there watching the game. And I guess a game in which they were down 10, he got up, left early, looked frustrated. Bob did, right? And Luka took exception to that in the locker room afterwards. Like, hey, you're going to sit out there. You're going to be the guy. Sit there till the end of the game like we do. All right, so we'll see who wins, Dan. Like, we're going to see how this all shakes out, because if Cuban has a decision to make, to me, it's an easy
I'm
decision.
just surprised that we're in a position this far in that we're saying we see who wins. Like, that's a little early for that. Regardless, Bubba Wallace is on with us now. He's joining us on behalf of DoorDash's new partnership with PetSmart. The companies are joining forces to offer on-demand delivery of pet supplies and accessories. Thank you for making the time, Bubba, and I get you in on this conversation. What is a sports conversation outside of your sport that is likely to lure you in because you have strong opinions or such an interest outside of your sport that you want to talk about it?
I think the conversations for me ramp up when you get into the playoffs of really NBA, NFL, any sport really. That's when it gets down to crunch time. So I think, paying attention to that.
So who do you love to watch in terms of poise under pressure across sports? Someone that you admire?
Man, that's tough. I kind of have a vague answer. I just enjoy. I don't have a favorite team, favorite player, in the NBA or NFL ranks. I just admire the guys who can seem to step up to the plate when it's time to deliver. That's kind of what I really look at, and a lot of people do that. So, like I said, vague answer, but just there to see a good game between the two teams.
Must win for Kevin Durant tonight.
Oh, for the love of God!
Mm-hmm.
For the love of God!
I think Bubba thinks so. Yeah. Thank you.
Indeed.
I believe in KD. KD's one of the best out there on the floor. So, see what he can do.
Can you tell us some of your backstory in terms of how young you were when you realized this is what you were going to do for a living?
Yeah. So I started when I was 9 years old, but it wasn't until I was maybe 16, 17 when I was like, man, there's nothing else that I'd want to do. So why give up now? Not even having the thought of giving up. It was just, there's nothing else out there that kind of feeds my appetite for the adrenaline, for the fun, the traveling, and all the things that this sport entails. I didn't feel like I could find that anywhere else. So I was like, you know what, let's stick it out for the long haul.
What would have been the second option?
True. I played basketball before I started racing, but the way my skills are now, basketball is not for me. I don't know. That's a good question. I got to win some races and stay where I'm at.
How supportive was your family of the choice?
They were supportive from day one. My mom and dad they were at the racetrack pretty much every weekend, following along and pushing me to get better.
Can you explain to us how hard a life that is to start at 9 with the family supporting it? You can't do it, right? Can you even do that sport if you haven't started at around that age?
It's just more challenging because you just learn so much. 9 was even late for me. You want to start when you're maybe 4, 5, 6 years old, kind of being able to put everything together and understand, gas, brake, turn left, turn right, whatever you're doing, kind of get that under your belt and then go start racing then. So 9 was considered late. But you just race so much and you gain all that seat time and all that track time at different tracks and you start to build your resume. And it's definitely tough and challenging. I mean, for us, we were fortunate enough to have our family-owned business, my dad's family-owned business of industrial cleaning. So we were able to foot the bill for, majority of the career. And they finally caught their big break in 2009. So yeah, it's definitely been different now, without the family there and kind of just being us 3, us 4 at the racetrack. It's a whole team now. It's professional, and you got guys and gals that are helping work on your car and make it better. So it's just crazy how it evolves to where we're at now, but definitely a lot of fun. Wouldn't trade it for anything.
Are you a risk taker in other parts of your life, or have you been doing this so long that you don't even view it as risk taking because it's something that's been in your blood since you're very young?
I'm an adrenaline junkie, so I am. I'll do question whatever I want to do that kind of gives you that edge or gives you that rush. Then I'll consider it, and then I'll probably follow through with it.
Like what? Can you give us some of the lists on the things that the items that you've needed to tackle because you're an adrenaline junkie, and the items still on that list that you haven't tackled that you will because you're only 27 years old?
Yeah, I don't know if it's that I need to do it. It just sounds fun. Like last 3 years, being a part of my former team at Richard Petty Motorsports, they had the partnership with the Air Force, and we were able to jump out of some planes, fly some fighter jets. Simulate some dogfighting stuff while up in the jets there. So, all that stuff was badass, like super cool. Just a lot of fun there. What else? I mean, my girlfriend talked me out of it, but, we had went to Horseshoe Bend, and, I was hanging my feet off the edge. I was up there, and it didn't really bother me, but my girlfriend was getting really very, very, very mad at me. So I kind of thought better. Happy wife, happy life.
Exactly. What's the most scared you've ever been searching for adrenaline or adrenaline? 31.
I don't know. That's a good question. I was pretty nervous jumping out of a big C-17. just for a split second. But then once we were out, you're out. Like you can't like, oh, let me redo that. No, it's you go through those emotions very quick. But I would say the most nervous I was jumping out of a perfectly good airplane.
Bubba, I figure when you're in a race, you're 10-2 because you're going really fast and you got to make good turns. When you're on a straightaway, you ever throw the pointer finger at the bottom of the steering wheel, little casual straightaway?
Usually I'll just let it kind of rest and either grab the headrest or let it hang off the side or stretch my hands out. But yeah.
You ever drive with your knees like during a caution or something? Give the hands a little resty?
No, it's the way these cars are set up, power steering and everything, that if you're not hanging on with a little bit of force, it'll start to turn left on you real quick.
The car is uncomfortable, correct?
Well, no, you want it to be comfortable. When it's comfortable, it's fast. But at times it can be uncomfortable. But honestly, the most comfortable spot where like I can fall asleep is inside the race car because the seats are molded to you. Like it's your body shape. And so, when we had practice last year, it was easy to just fall asleep, doze off while the crew was making adjustments.
I can relate to this so much. Often when I'm driving to work, I get that sleepy feeling where it's like I'm just about to fall asleep at the wheel here. What's your tactics for waking yourself up? A little slap in the face, you start singing maybe? Like what do you do?
Yeah, no, you don't get sleepy with what we do. You definitely don't, especially when you're going as fast as we are and there's a concrete barrier that hurts when you hit it. Yeah. Don't fall asleep while driving though.
Bubba, you make so many decisions out on the track between drafting and when to pass and negotiating corners and when to pit, when to change the tires. Like, how do you prepare for that sort of stuff? And how important is your team around you?
Yeah, I mean, you said it right there. It's about who you surround yourself with. It's about the team that you're with and making sure the right personnel are in the right spot to be able to kind of navigate that for you and with you. I'm being told by my spotter and by my crew chief kind of what to do as far as pitting, as far as our strategy and where other guys are running to maximize our opportunities and our lap time and just make sure we have the best race possible. So the easiest answer, put yourself around good people.
Back to the getting bored while you're driving, though, Bubba. How do you not do it? Because, like, if I drive for 3 hours from Miami to Orlando, like on the turnpike, I'm just looking at a ton of trees. And when you're on a racetrack, you're just going around in circles, seeing the same things over and over again. So how don't you get bored?
Well, it's not circles, it's ovals because you go straight. So it's 180, 190 miles an hour. Trust me, you won't get bored. It's pretty easy to do.
Why are you guys interviewing him like he's an Uber driver? I don't.
Questions, though. I mean,
no, they're not.
they're important
okay,
questions.
maybe
They
that's
are.
a segue.
I prefer a DoorDash driver.
All right, go ahead. My bad. DoorDash. What are you doing with PetSmart and DoorDash? I don't understand some of the. I've got plenty of silly questions for him. Before we get to DoorDash,
Silly.
Number of times, Bubba Wallace has been pulled over outside of the track for speeding.
Man, I would say it's only the reason I'm thinking about it so long is because it's very few. I would say maybe on one hand at most.
Number of times you've gotten out of a ticket because someone realizes, oh, look, it's Bubba Wallace.
Now that is like 4 or 5 hands. So I'll take that all day.
So you can't remember the tickets because everyone lets you off when you're speeding. So you've got a heavy foot, correct? When you're driving around normally, you can't drive slow, can you?
No, the best one I have is I was at the mall, which is close to my house here. I grew up in this area for 25 years, going on 26 years. And they had just recently, in the last 5 years, put up a don't turn, you can only turn right on signal, no right on red. And I never knew that. Pulled through, kept going right. Cop was behind me, pulls me over. And he was like, hey, man, you turn right on red. And I was like, how long has that sign been up? And he's like, for 20 years. And I'm like, negative. Nah, that's not true. I was like, how long have you been here? It's a question because he didn't know. Anyways. And he comes up and he's like, I'll be right back. Well, then you see both officers get out. And it was me and my girlfriend. and one's on the left side, one's on the right, and they were asking about racing stuff, and I was like, yes, I'm out. the best was I had an appearance at that mall either that week or the following week, and the officer that pulled me over, or it may have been like the partner or something, was the security for that event. And so he was like embarrassed. He was like, hey man, I was the one who pulled you over the other week. Sorry about that. It's funny how it comes around full circle.
Have you ever had to go to the bathroom in the racing gear because there simply is no time to stop? You're in a hurry.
Nope. I've always, and it's kind of embedded into my brain. I was always told that if you went number 1 or number 2 in the car, whatever, that you had to be there Monday morning to clean it out because the crew wasn't going to clean that out. So I was like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to clean that out. So just don't do it.
What are you doing here with DoorDash and PetSmart? What is the link? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, it means a lot. Actually, Asher here, he's taking a nap. He became a superstar, which is really cool. We actually did an awesome job that day. Kind of being told what to do and acting and smiling and be serious. And I'm like, all right, let's remember he's a dog. But really cool partnership with DoorDash. Obviously, they've done a lot for me in my career, but the alliance there with PetSmart is super cool. So you can get any of your necessities that you want or need from PetSmart, and DoorDash will deliver it. So it was cool to be kind of the voice and Asher be the pet of choice, the dog of choice there to bring that partnership to life. So really cool, really thankful for that.
You've been very vocal, vulnerable, honest. I don't know if you chose to decide to be a leader on this or if anyone inspired you on this front, talking about sort of wrestling with mental struggles. And I was curious, when it comes to you, Tyson Fury gave voice to arriving at the mountaintop and looking around and being like, well, is this all there is? Everything I've worked for, here it is. Is this all there is? And then sort of doing the introspection of, okay, there's something. Then, he started eating a bunch, started doing cocaine, started doing a bunch of different things when he realized, wait a minute, this thing I've always wanted to be, I've gotten here and it doesn't fill me with joy. Is there anything like that with you, linking the professional and the personal there? Because you've been vocal in a way that probably isn't heard a lot in your sport.
Yeah, no, I think, there's always new opportunities and new avenues to be explored in our sport. And I think that's kind of with every sport. You're always trying to check something off the list, whatever that is, records, personal records, whatever it is. And so, I haven't gotten to the top of the mountain yet. I still got a lot of work to do. And so, there are times, mental times, where you get down and out and you start doubting yourself, if you can do it or not. But it's again, surrounding yourself with the right people off the racetrack to help you navigate through that and to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So it's just, being on a pedestal requires a lot of obligations and everything that, you necessarily don't know going into it. You just have to learn as you go. And that can be stressful to a lot of people.
Bubba, what Naomi Osaka went through in the French Open seemed to be a rallying cry for a lot of fellow athletes who understood what she was going through. What was your take on that? Because you've been very sympathetic to what she went through.
Yeah. I came out about depression 2-3 years ago. And it's very real. I still battle it at times, even to this day. You just wake up and you just don't want to be bothered. You don't, there's nothing seems to go right, and you don't know why. It just happens like that. And so it's tough to navigate that, especially when it's a competition day or whatnot. You have to put on a face and get through it all. You basically fake it till you make it, and you harness in so much that eventually it boils over, and you just can't do whatever you're supposed to do that day. And so I sympathize with her and all the athletes that continue to just put on a face and put on a front when they're dealing with so much more on the inside. At the end of the day, we're all human. We all battle these things. Just because we are, on TV or making a lot of money or whatever, it's not about the money to a lot of us, especially me. it's about being in a good mental state, having a lot of fun, and just being happy. And there's certain things that don't make you happy and send you down a dark path. And so, a lot of the people out there won't ever realize that and call it weak, but it's actually more of a strength than it is weakness. So, it's just part of it.
What percentage of the time would you say that you feel like you're faking it to make it in a sport that you love? It's something that you love doing, but there are a lot of parts about it that, for whatever the reasons, you feel like you have to grind your way through a day because it's not as fun as people would imagine.
Yeah, well, when you get asked questions like a Uber driver, as you say, that kind of sends you down that path. But honestly, it's just you can't ever really put a number on it. I don't keep stats of how many dark days, if you will, there are. It's just today's one of those days, and you just kind of got to get through it.
It requires a summoning of professionalism and strength. And I imagine your life has your life changed a lot in the last, 24 months? Or when did you realize your life was different forever?
My life's always been different. That's why my foundation is called Live to Be Different. You look different, you act different. It's just part of it. That's why I encourage everybody to be different. We're all different in our own little way. It's up to us to find out what that is and to pursue that. No need to be a follower when you're a leader of yourself. So just continue to be a leader and motivate others.
It's always been that way for you since you were young.
Always been that way.
And do you have like roots for it? Do you understand why that is? Is it upbringing, surroundings, cultural, being a different guy in a different sport, being someone with an unusual take and an unusual background in that sport?
Yeah, all of that. My parents never, they always raised me that everybody's equal. If somebody treats you wrong, then, you quickly, take yourself out of that scenario, and that's it. But I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. And that's where, I feel like society is lacking. We already have our assumptions and judgments made up before those people even say a word. And some people that's fine, maybe one or two, but it feels like now everybody's just seeing color and it's taking their judgment already. So for me, it was just always about having fun, having friends to have fun with. And yeah, I look different and I may act different. I may be an introvert, I may be an extrovert, whatever. That's just me, but I'm not going to let somebody else influence my life and live my life. I'm going to live the life the way I want it to live.
I'm sorry we asked you a bunch of Uber driver questions. I'm sorry I introduced you as Bubba Watson
DoorDash
as well.
It's all right. The Bubba Watson thing is a little bit more infuriating than the
I'm sure
Uber
it
stuff,
is.
but it's part of it. Me and Bubba are actually really good friends, so it's good.
Thank you for being on with us, sir. We appreciate the time. Continued success.
No problem. Have a good one. Thanks.
Thank you, Bubba.
He's He's got a new book, How to Survive America. It's available today. You could get it now. The book confronts racism, the unjust impact of health and well-being and the safety of blacks and minorities. And this guy has been a funny voice and a great voice across many decades of comedy. And that's a small club, the people who do what he does, where you get into your most vulnerable state. They say this all the time, right, DL? Stand-up comedy is the hardest thing, right? Is there a harder thing in entertainment?
Well, you know what? Everybody's going to be vain and say, I mean, you would say radio was the hardest, but I think for me, there is no, you're very low. Everything you do is your fault. Everything that you do is good, is attributable to you. So I think, to me, it's the greatest endeavor, the greatest form of artistic expression that ever existed. To me. Now, I'm sure other people might have their estimation of that, but I just think a man, his thoughts, or a woman and her thoughts in a microphone is just, I don't think there's ever going to be unequal to that.
And when you were coming up in this business, when did you realize, yes, I can make a career of this? Because that's also scary. It's not like there's healthcare and safety nets everywhere.
And I got married very young, and I was married and having to take care. Like right away, she started getting pregnant. Who knew? Like, Jesus, what are you, a rabbit? But she started getting pregnant right away, and I was working at the LA Times doing comedy. And then one day I just couldn't do it anymore. And so we just took a leap of faith and started doing comedy, and it took off slowly, but eventually worked out.
And what were the challenges like? Because I can't imagine what was the hardest thing trying to make a career of this.
Well, the hardest thing was this was pre-Def Jam. So a lot of the people who own the venues hadn't heard of a lot of the comedians. So we were big in the urban space, but not necessarily. And a matter of fact, the first time I played any venue like a Comedy Zone or Improv was in 1998. And I've been doing comedy a number of years, and it was after Def Jam and the Hughleys was on. So, and then they gave me a door deal. But I just think making the ability to have people take you seriously in terms of being able to sell tickets and draw an audience was the biggest challenge.
This wasn't the 60s. This is the late 90s. How hard was it for Black artists to cross over mainstream? When you say we had a big urban audience, but this is this is pre-internet, so pre-urban, good.
It's pre, and it was very funny because I remember I was in Cleveland and they charged the ticket price, and I got 90% of the door because they wouldn't give you like a deal. They would just say, "Hey, we'll give you a door deal." And so we sold out like 10 shows, and I was in there counting my money. I'm like, we should do this again, but even then, it was urban audiences that came to those venues. And after a while, what I started to notice is kind of the broader my experiences and the broader my, the more experiences I have, the more expansive my experiences were, the broader an audience started to be. And I just, so it was just based on the kinds of experiences I was having. Because I grew up on 135th and Avalon, and that was a very narrow prism to view things. But as you develop and start experiencing more things, audiences got broader and more opportunities came along.
What an amazing prism, though. It's over decades of comedy, over decades of race relations in this country, over decades of being a Black man trying to find the funny and the spaces in comedy. So you arrive now, a wizened veteran of what's funny. Funny comes from pain. I can't even imagine what watching America the last 18 months has been like for you as someone who's a guest on Bill Maher and isn't afraid to tackle some of the more difficult topics.
It seemed familiar to me. It did. It seemed, I think that America has to reconcile because, I think that America has to reconcile if it's what's on the brochure or it's like on the Priceline and going to a great hotel room and find out it's fucked up. That's kind of what America is going through right now. But to me, it seemed familiar. I think that there were all the things, all the pretext was stripped away, and we just kind of got a real unvarnished look at who we were. And I don't think for Black people it was really that much of an awakening. I think that those things, like, it's funny because every couple of weeks a video will come out of somebody doing something insanely brutal to Black people on a video, but it'll be from 3 years ago. And then we go, we can't believe it happens. Like even the statues that we build, to get a statue in America, you have to have done something horrible to Black people. Like there are way more statues to Robert E. Lee than there ever will be to Jesus. And you like, even right now, people want to stop teaching about the Civil War, but keep the monument to the men who perpetrated. So I think that there's always these dualities, and those things inherently are just funny.
The thing that I kept saying to people during the insurrection in terms of chickens coming home to roost through Malcolm, through all that stuff, is Black people had to be watching that and saying, if this were Black Lives Matter storming this Capitol, these Black bodies would be stacked up on top of each other like fire logs.
Well, you know what's funny, Dan?
Here was the Capitol.
I think that a lot of people took the tack that, you know, there was a kinship between the insurrectionists and the police force. And I think that there's undoubtedly some of that's true. But I really think that those men and women felt like their lives were in danger. Like if you hear any of the interviews, they were talking about if we shot, they would, like, they really felt. So we got to, in addition to, we got to see what an insurrection looks like, which no one, you know, for us it's a riot, but it was an insurrection. But in addition to that, we got to see what real law, so how law enforcement really act when they really feel like their life's in jeopardy. Like they were very judicious, they were very cautious, and I think we got an example of what, you know, you should use that kind of prudence and kind of measured approach. Like all of them, like people were getting beat to death and they didn't shoot in front of them. People were getting pepper sprayed and they didn't shoot, and that wasn't because, you know, they had a kinship with them. They just didn't want to die. They're like, man, these need to shoot back, and we are outnumbered.
Well, you've said before, right? Yeah, the black person is rarely the one who's throwing anything at an athlete these days. You're not black people, because of how America has been to them. There are no black daredevils, for example. Like black people don't go into the woods. I've heard your routine on this. Like there's certain places that black people simply don't court danger, and we don't care if you're stereotyping us. On this is the way that's looked at. Right. Like, listen, I got to fill out a credit application. What I got to go to the woods for? like it's just, I think that they're inherent things. And I think that this pandemic and us having to reconcile ourselves with all these things that have happened, because we weren't distracted. Like all the things that generally distract us just didn't exist. And there are only so many great, you couldn't watch sports. You couldn't go to church. It was funny because churches was closed, but bars were open. So you can Zoom Jesus, but not Jack Daniels. Like we're not a Christian society. We are a Christian Brothers society. Like it's all the things that we once counted on to have this kind of distractive quality didn't exist, and we had to see ourselves. And I just think like when people ask me, you know, the name of the book is How to Survive America, but ultimately there was nothing that George Floyd could have done to survive his encounter with Chauvin, because Chauvin was determined to kill him that day. The only thing he could have done is not be in the same proximity, not calling for his dead mother, not calling him sir, not praying, not asking for help, not cooperating. None of that was going to work. And so ultimately, I think that we just have to be in the right places at the right times and out of the wrong ones at the wrong time. The feeling you felt strongest over this summer, if you had to pick one from among hopeful, depressing, angry, numb, where were you? Because you sound unsurprised. You sound unsurprised to haven't seen it laid bare. I would say righteous indignation, because I remember when I got COVID, and it was funny, I was promoting another book. I got COVID. I passed out on stage. So then I passed out on stage, and they get ready to take me to the hospital. And the ambulance driver started to take me to the urban hospital. But then they realized, oh, this is a famous black dude. We'll take him. Anything with ours always County General Memorial. Y'all the saint. So you know you're going to a saint, you're going to get great medical treatment. So I go there and imagine what my outcome may have been had I went somewhere that was less resources. Then I got here and they kicked me out of the hotel. American, Delta, and United wouldn't fly me. I had to get a private jet. They wouldn't fly me. And George Lopez and Don Cheadle and Chris Spencer and Anthony Anderson had to all get on the phone. And said to me and Tina had to all get on the phone with this private jet company and say, either you come get him or we don't use you anymore. So imagine all of that's absent. Imagine all those things are absent. Then we might be having a decidedly different outcome. And I think that is the thing most prevalent. This disease and this pandemic is really no different than what happened in 1930 in the Spanish flu. We died proportionally at the same rate, and it was always our fault. Like almost everything that happens to us, it is always on. Like I think that America has never seen a black person die, whatever the circumstance, be a pandemic or the hand of a policeman, where they kind of brought that on themselves. I don't know how to follow that, because I don't know. I don't know how many people know the entire story, right? You were one of the first comedians because, man, we were talking to some depressed comedians during the pandemic who were telling us this might be the death of comedy clubs.
Right.
This might be sort of the death of comedy itself with cancel culture, of laughter. You were one of the few guys to get out there early, dangerously. It goes disastrously.
It's about as bad as it can go. Right. Yeah.
I mean, you get out there first, and it's not because you're an idiot or because you're desperate for laughs. You're just trying to get back to normal. You're trying to get back to money. And, But in everything you just said, that is one hell of a phone call that got that private jet. Jesus Christ. Who did you put on that line to bully a private? That's real.
Yeah, it was
you were talking about there, to bully a private jet into we will.
And they were gonna do like 4 of them, like we had got scheduled because we got kicked out of the hotel because I guess they saw it was on the news. They like this. That's what we got to get out of the hotel. We have reservations already on American. That's what I fly, and then they're like, we can't take a COVID patient, and all the other airlines said the same. So we thought we'd fly private. They were set, and then didn't happen. And then collectively, there's a jet company that we generally use, and they got on the phone with that company and said, look, if you don't fly, we'll never use you again. And then a jet came, but it's just. I think, and I remember there was a doctor in Indianapolis, a Black female doctor, and she got COVID, and she knew she was trying to tell him that she needed a therapeutic, and she was recorded herself, and they didn't give it to her, and she died. And she knew she was going to, so there was nothing that she could do to avoid that. The only thing she could have done to not avoid that is not be in that circumstance. She was a medical professional. She's a doctor. She knew what was going on, but the way that even if you look at what happened recently, how Naomi Osaka, she decides for her own mental health that she's not going to play in the French Open, and Piers Morgan says, oh, well, she's just weaponizing. The problem is that there's nothing that Black people say that people believe. That Serena Williams has a blood clot. No, she's ill. She can't get treatment because people don't believe her. So I think that seed, it says something about who we are. Either we have done all these things to deserve it, or America has done some incredibly monstrous things.
You're making it very hard for me to transition into. I just want to ask you sort of the TMZ question of who was calling, who was on that line bullying that private jet company. TMZ dragged you. And it was this was an uncomfortable moment for you publicly. You weren't trying to do anything bad. You were just trying to get back to laughing, trying to get back to normal. You got dragged. So it took what to get that flight in the air? Who made that call?
It was a combination of George Lopez, said the entertainer, Chris Spencer, Anthony Anderson, and Don Cheadle. They're like when there's a jet company that we generally just use, and collectively they got on the phone, and the next thing you know, it'll be there in 4 hours. And it wasn't, but they had plastic everywhere, like your mother's couch in the living room. And they had plastic everywhere. I thought I was flying in my mother's den, but it was plastic everywhere. And then when I got home, like no car would pick me up, and my wife picked up, like the security picked up, the limo company picked up my security, and my dog, I have a Akita that travels with me, so my wife picked up me and the dog, but she had plastic everywhere. It was like being a leper. I was like, I came home and it was like plastic everywhere, and everybody was all separate. So it gave me a lot of time to think, and that's actually when I started writing this book. After that process.
And tell me about the process of writing the book. So it's not just all of that. It's this summer. It's somebody who wants to be a comedian with a voice that resonates, that echoes. It's not just all funny. Hey, I've got a unique perspective. Yeah, I've been one of the small world you live in. It is small. What is it, 100 stand-up comics? Like you're all friends. I couldn't believe I talked to Bill Burr the other day, and it's the only place I've ever seen him be sensitive, where he looks out for all you guys because it's such a small world.
The most crazy thing is passing out so I'm passed out in the hospital. I had passed out, I'm in the hospital, and Chappelle and Leno and Sykes and Chris, like all these people are calling, but the worst thing in the world is to have comedians call you when they know you're not gonna die, like when they know you all right. It was the most horrible stuff ever. I'm like, man, I was feeling kind of low, and now you guys succeeded, made me feel lower. But it's just, I think it's the way that kind of people process things, but it was it was because you're away from everything. I haven't not been on the road for 30 years. Not been on the road. Like my wife is like, what are you thinking about? Well, I can call my girlfriend with you around while you're here all the time. There's nothing like I can't. But it really just you have to find another outlet. You know, I did my syndicated radio show from home. I actually did it from the hospital when we got back. So it was, there were just, funny has to get out, you know, and I don't think the Zoom thing, the virtual thing works for us. So I just kind of channeled it into other things.
The calls you were getting in the hospital, who gave it to you best? Like who was?
Wanda Sykes, no question. Wanda Sykes, well, Kevin Hart, then Wanda Sykes. Wanda Sykes said, I think you passed out because your hat was too tight. And you know what? I haven't worn a hat since then. I'm just saying, I don't think it's true. And then Kevin Hart, you know, he's like he's a horrible man. But he said, you passed out because you old and you should remember that you old. Like it was just like, and this was like, I was like waiting for test results. Like I was like, what happened? Why not pass out? But I think it's just their way of it's that whole gallows humor thing.
Walk me through some of your relationships here, because one of the things from the outside, I can't know this to be so, but it's in listening to both of them talk. Kevin Hart is hugely popular. He's monetized that game in a way that's overwhelming. He's the most, I got to think, the most financially successful of that group, who's not maybe, you know, Seinfeld.
I think maybe of all time. I mean, you have to look at like the Dice Clays and the Eddie Murphy, like where they achieved this just zenith of just profit and money and notoriety. So I think he had to be arguably one of the best at that level. One of the people that's made success on a level that we just have rarely seen. But I think Kevin Hart is probably one of the most likable human beings I've ever met. Very just a likable.
And off of that, the question I wanted to ask you is, in interviews, I have gotten the impression, and I say this with, like, I'm trying to say it with nuance. I'm not pitting them against each other, but I've just gotten the impression that Kevin Hart, for all of his success, there's something that is not envious in a poisonous way, but just he wishes he had the freedom that Chappelle has. That Chappelle, I don't mean it as an indictment. I just mean that Chappelle, you know, broke away from Comedy Central. He goes to South Africa. He's like, I don't like this commerce. The part of it that it doesn't seem like people understand that what the show I'm doing is not white people laughing at black people. It's black people laughing at the way white people laugh at black people. And now I'm with Comedy Central, and it's all white executives. They're giving me $50 million. No, I'm out of here. And then he's done it his way the rest of the way. And it doesn't seem like he's got a boss in the
world. You know what? I don't care who you are. Michael Jordan was the greatest basketball player ever left to play baseball. Like, you have rock stars that want to be rock stars, that want to be athletes that want to be rock stars, actors that want to be politicians, and politicians that want to be actors. I think once you've achieved the level of success, you become envious of, like, it's almost like the whole grass is greener thing. But I think there is a freedom in being unafraid to lose that I think, or the thing about Chappelle that I just marvel at is how patient he is. It's like watching wine being made. He's very patient. He doesn't necessarily rush to the point. He enjoys the ride. Like, it's such a vivid experience. I think Kevin Hart is more self-deprecating and has just a warmer kind. Because if you're talking about yourself, that's, you know, and you're talking about your circumstances, very insulated. So it's very little chance that people, you know, are gonna find that offensive or controversial or anything like that. But Dave's view is so expansive, and he's so patient that you can't help but listen. Like, I remember movies. You go to this strange place with these people and you watch this thing. But television is such a much more, and radio is so intimate that people have to strain to hear you. Like, you have to be invited in. Like, you can't get radio. They're not gonna be in your proximity unless I push a button and say, you come on in. And TV the same way. And I think that's how it equate their kind of views of the world. One is more intimate and one is kind of more expansive.
Before we let you go here, because that's interesting that you see Chappelle, you watch Chappelle as a comic the way somebody would watch Le'Veon Bell as a patient runner, that he's not, that he's just
Right.
taking, like nobody does it that patiently.
Right.
I know your laugh is coming. I'm going to do this the most confident way. There's not going to be any insecurity in my.
I think now but I don't think he necessarily has an expectation of a laugh. I don't think that he cares what the result is. I think that he cares that he's sharp in his assessment of it. It's almost like watching like female golfers swing. It almost looked like they're falling asleep doing the swing. Like they're that, you know, or Ernie Els, like the way they swing is so lazy, but you know, and it's a thing of beauty to watch when you see somebody who does everything they say you're supposed to do, like from a sports position. You're supposed to be clear. You're supposed to take your time. You're supposed to rely on so all the stuff that you rely on from a sports perspective that makes you quintessentially great is, I think, elementally what those two dudes do, but in their own endeavors.
From your sphere, when I say to you most fearless comic or most confident comic, are those the same person or are those two different things?
Now, I think confidence is the definite nail for a comedian. I think if you're confident, I mean, it's almost like if an athlete doesn't have butterflies, he's not ready. And I think confidence, I think the people who fake confidence better than anybody. I think there are people who fake confidence, but the minute you're not afraid to do something, the minute that you're not anxious about doing it, means that you're lazy to me. So I think I've seen probably the most confident human being, or the most outwardly confident, fearless human being I've ever been around comedically is Paul Mooney.
How did you experience his passing recently? Because
I was very sad about it, but I think Paul was a great comedian, but not a warm man. Like he wasn't a warm man. So you're sad that something like that happens. But you know, it's not I didn't have a warm interaction. I had an appreciation for what he did. And I had, certainly I was sympathetic to his family and his friends, but he was a hard dude to like. He was a hard dude to like, but a hard dude to lose too. So
you are excellent, sir. Thank you for spending this time with us. One more time, if you want to tell the people out the door why it is that you wrote this book and why it is they should pick it up. Thank you for the time, and let's do it again, please, because I wrote
the book because I remember when Jerome Adams, the Surgeon General at the time, got on television and told Black people and brown people we got to stop drinking, smoking, and doing drugs. That's basically intimating that we're predisposed to it. But at the time, Europe was locked down. It was raging the world. But here, a government official actually got on TV and told Black people, like, it's your fault. like if you stop drinking, forget that the whole country's addicted to opiates. Forget that everybody was smoking and drinking, that you could get weed delivered to your door. There is a special dispensation for Black people. It was why we were at fault for proportionally being at the hands of this virus. And when I saw that, and I had just gone through the process. I just wrote the book, and originally my agent didn't want it, but my publisher asked me to have any new ideas, and this is what we came with. And I'm very proud.
Thank you, sir. We will talk again.
Thank you, man. What a pleasure. Take care.
I have a couple of basketball stories that I want to get to.
Okay.
A report out of Portland that there have been internal discussions there about Eric Spoelstra, going after Eric Spoelstra as their coach, and also the Nets have an interesting game tonight. Kevin Durant hasn't been this kind of vulnerable in a long time. He hasn't, not since OKC has he been quite this exposed without protection.
And we just got the lamest upgrade in the history of upgrades. James Harden was out, and now he is doubtful.
I am fascinated. What are you going to get from Durant tonight when the circumstances all of a sudden call for, in the middle of peril, hey, Durant, you don't have very much support right now. You've been at the forefront for a long time, for a decade now, of the way the sport has mutated, so that you were at the front and center of the hood ornament on Team Troll, and now you've lost both trolls.
Right.
Both the other trolls.
But that's also an opportunity for Kevin Durant.
Correct.
To shut people up and
It
say,
is,
hey,
but
you know
it's
what? They're both
It's
out.
been a
and I
long
got it
time.
done.
It's been a long time since he had the opportunity that way.
Right.
Where he doesn't even have it. Westbrook. It's been a long
He's got Joe
time
Harris.
since he was this exposed. But we have to go first. We have to wrap this up here. Erlene Cody, the strongest and the best of the Codys by far, joins us now from atop the legal world, where we ask her questions about her weirdo husband. First of all, what can you tell me about the initials QK? We need to understand why it is that your husband just will say QK in your house.
You don't know? I thought everyone used that. No. Yeah, you mean the quick crap. Yeah, that's his signal.
Is it ever quick?
Okay, and I don't think I want to keep asking follow-ups in this particular realm, but where does it rank in terms of your husband's weirdnesses for him to refer to the quick crap as a QK?
Isn't it just sort of in keeping? I mean, I don't think it's probably in the middle somewhere at worst. You know, it's not that it doesn't infuriate me. So it's fine.
She shrugs it off.
What is the thing that he does more than any other that would be the highest of the pet peeves when it comes to infuriating you?
You know, that's I think it's just his unwillingness. I mean, it's his unwillingness, his stubbornness or whatever. Like, this is a really dumb example, and it's probably not that funny unless you're living it. But like we were watching TV. There was an Arby's commercial on, and I said we don't. And his brother was there. I said we don't have any Arby's by us. He goes, yes, we do. It's right down the street. I'm like, that's not an Arby's. That hasn't been an Arby's in 10 years. And he's like, I say it's a Chipotle. He goes, if you say so.
Oh,
like,
yeah, that one. Yes,
so.
yes.
Yeah.
It's you can't win the argument against of if you say so.
Oh, so this is better. The next day we're freaking driving down the street, and we were driving by, and I went, hey, look, there's the Chipotle. And he goes, if you say so.
Oh,
he wouldn't even look.
Way to stay entrenched, Greg.
Thank you.
How did you feel about the monument that Greg made for your beloved Riley, who recently passed?
You mean the hanging tennis ball?
Yep, that one.
Well, take
That's
us
one way to
through.
put it.
Take us through your discovery, just the whole thing. Are you looking? I'm gazing out through the kitchen, and you just see a hovering tennis ball.
No. He had to bring it to my attention since it really didn't really stand out, I would say.
Of course.
So wait,
Tennis ball.
so he comes to you and says, "What do you think that is?" Or he tries to get you to figure out the symbolism of the tennis ball
Well,
hanging
he had
from
told
the
me
tree.
he had found a ball in the backyard that he thinks was the last official ball. And so that was a couple days earlier. And then I think he was waiting for me to notice it, even though it was way far out of the way. And then he's like, see that out there? And I'm like, what? And he goes, you see the ball? And I'm like, where? I finally see it. And I'm like, okay. You know, that's when I just sort of go, okay. You know, it's better not to comment additionally on
You
top
could
of
have
that.
complimented the
He was proud of
emotional
himself.
gesture.
Right, he was proud.
There was also an accusation that it was Greg's dog.
Yeah, oh, he did do
It
that.
was Greg's
yeah.
dog.
Yes, he said that was my dog. If we were being honest, because
Really?
and he said it with tears.
He was, Greg was definitely in the top 4 people that she loved the most.
Well, Greg also said that letting Riley pass may have been a financial decision.
Oh my
I did
God.
not say that.
He saved money. He did.
He did
Well,
say
we
the
did
same.
say
He is a guy that's always looking to save money.
Right.
He gets mad at us if we order an extra pizza, right? The other night we went to have dinner,
So annoying.
right? Christopher can tell you this. He gets so upset if we're going to pay an extra $14 to have an extra pizza.
And it's the same conversation every single time we go to this restaurant. We have like
Every
eight
single time.
people
it's
with
the
us.
cheapest place in the world.
So we're like, let's get 3 pies. We want 3 different kinds. And he's just always like, too much food.
In Greg's defense, though, is there ever too much pizza? I mean, because that's
that was
annoying.
like the one and only time ever. And when we eat it all,
That's not in
he never
Greg's
says a word.
defense.
He never, like,
Stugotz doesn't understand how to defend Greg.
Waste not, want not, right, Greg?
Exactly.
How is that in Greg's defense, Stugotz? How have you had such trouble with math today?
I mean, you order so much food, Dan. It's annoying, right? You're spending too much money. The food's not going to be eaten. No one likes leftovers. I understand where
You
Greg's
just
coming
said
from.
there's no such thing as too much pizza. You lying rat, think
Little
asshole.
za.
Yeah, little za. There it is. There he farts out a little something. Little za, give me $1 million.
I want to set the record straight. I want to set the record straight because I am maligned as a cheapskate. It's not about spending an extra $20 on another pizza. It's that you, frankly, have a habit of over ordering and thinking in terms of, well, we want leftovers or what am I going to bring to lunch tomorrow? I don't believe in that. I believe
Your
in
son
ordering just
actually
what you're going to
announced,
eat at the
"Please,
table.
your son announced, let's order extra because I want leftovers from here.
Well,
He
that's-
asked for extra.
I'm again it.
And then on Sunday, it's like, if we don't have leftovers for Christy to have leftover lunch, she's not happy the next day. So we make her happy.
Well,
So that's what we do.
She's happy if I don't make shrimp.
If you say so, is what I thought he was going to say.
Well,
If you say so. That is so that if you say so, makes my skin crawl.
Tread lightly. She's a lawyer, Greg.
Don't I know it, Roy?
Erlene, if you would, I would love for 5 things, not right now, but just if you could put together a list, 5 things your husband does that make your skin crawl and 5 weirdest things about your husband. It doesn't have to be right now, but I'd like to come back to you at a future date and get those lists if you don't mind.
Because I got nothing else going on right now.
Unless you have them right now off the top of your head.
Does calling farts pets rank in the top 5 weirdest things?
It's absurd, and he's upset that the rest of us don't do that.
It's a kind, gentle word compared to fart. Who can deny that?
All right, Erlene, we'll check back in
All
with
right.
you. Thank you. Good talking to
Bye.
you. Who can deny that? Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Is pet a kind, gentle word for fart? Who can deny that? At Batard Show. I think the Portland job is the only one that if you told me what might tempt Spoelstra out of here, just because I don't totally know what his links are emotionally to Portland. I don't know what his attachments are or his wife's attachments are to Miami or where they want to raise a new family and kids. But Portland has been a place that has called him as someone who went to college there. And so I don't have any specifics here beyond knowing that he speaks of Portland fondly.
His father worked for the Blazers, I believe. So he has like connections that might have even grown up around that organization. So like he has real and legitimate connections to Portland, which is why like this czar of basketball plus head coach would seemingly be appealing to him.
It's something he can't be here. He's the videographer who came up through the system, and the organization is Riley's until it's not.
But it would be his after Riley leaves, right? Like, is it worth waiting around for?
I don't know if Riley's going to ever leave because he's been here for a long time. I don't know what the pull of this. Again, I have not talked to anybody, so I'm just speaking strictly of I've heard him talk emotionally about Portland. I've never heard him talk that way about another city. And so that's the only link to it, because it's right now it's just Portland's interested. It makes sense that Portland would be interested. I would think Miami would be a hell of a lot more interested in getting disgruntled Lillard here than losing their coach to there. But I also do understand in this organization that's made up of lifers and loyalists, you either ride with Riley or you're excommunicated. Like there's not this organization is filled with people who have been here like Eric Spoelstra since he was a videographer. I would understand a young father at a different time in his life saying, you know what, I'd like to be in charge of my own thing. I'd like to make a go of it. Now, there are dangers in that, right? Fizdale learned it the hard way. There are dangers in...
Stan learned it the hard way.
Well, but he's gotten chance after chance after chance at least. Juwan Howard made a decision coming up through this pipeline to go home. Portland represents home, does it not? For Eric Spoelstra, he went to college there, and he was there briefly, correct? He tried to play basketball there.
Yes. Yeah, but what Stan went through, Stan was a coach, and then he got control of everything in Detroit, and that didn't go well, right, for Stan. So that's a different animal. I wouldn't leave Riley. Like, Riley's the guy that gets LeBron. He gets Chris Bosh. He gets Jimmy Butler. He gets you to the NBA Finals. I wouldn't leave Riley if I were him. Certainly not for Portland.
But Stan has burnished his reputation to the point where the Detroit thing did not work out in a spectacular way, and he still got the Pelicans job because he's got a reputation. And I think Eric Spoelstra has now kind of become like the coach's coach. Like we talked earlier about comedian's comedian. Like I think Eric Spoelstra now is the coach's coach, where everyone says, no matter what, Eric Spoelstra is getting the most out of any team that he has. So, I mean, in some ways, he doesn't have to prove that. Somewhere else, he's got that reputation already. But in terms of getting your own thing, like the heat is always bigger than any one individual except for Pat Riley.
I'm looking at that job and saying, okay, if something is going to tempt him, that's what it would look like. You've got a star, it's a city that he likes, and you get an upgrade in your power. You become somebody who is, he does not run this organization. He is one of a handful of voices.
But he has to know that star is going to stay there long term, right? Because there have been rumors that the star might not be happy there anymore. So you have to know that.
I don't think you have to know that, actually, because he's got 3 years either way if it's the calling from home, and what Whittingham just said is true. He's not going to ruin himself. This will be his second job, and there will be a third for Eric Spoelstra if he wishes to continue down that path and there's a failure there.
Well, what is Spo's appetite to have more power? That's the essential question.
What's the appetite to be out from under the parental organization that you've been under for 20 years because you'd like to try something new, because Riley and Harrison have been in charge for a long time and you just want to try something new? Again, I'm just throwing out hypotheticals. I will say it again. I don't know anything here, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's smart of Portland. That's what I would be doing if I were Portland. See if I could tempt him with more power, more money. Hey, do you want to get out from under all that? Do you want to be somebody who carves his own path? What's your family life story? Would you prefer, there are shootings all over Miami these days. Would you prefer Portland?
That's the temptation. I think the power factors into it, but eventually he'll have power somewhere. If
He's
he
an
wants
older
that.
father.
Going home is the temptation.
He's an older father raising a new family and having found the perspective that he's been lopsided for a long time in basketball, arriving at a level of success. He can choose his own thing. He can have something that more resembles adult balance in his life if he's capable of it as a coach, because they become lopsided and becomes all about the coaching. But I don't know how much. I've heard him speak of how much the perspective has changed with the kids. Would you rather raise young kids in Portland or Miami right now? Because I don't know the answer to that for him, but I would think that that would be a governing force for him, whatever that is.
I would think if you're Pat Riley, one of the ways you keep Spo is to tell him in private, I'm going to give this 3 more years. You're still a young man. You're still in your 40s, mid 40s, I think. Stick it out here. We're going to make it worth your while.
You can't bank on that, though. I mean, Riley telling you that, and then 2.5 years from now, Riley's like, "Hey,
he's
going to
be a skeleton in that throne with perfectly groomed hair.
Yeah,
he's going to stay there forever, talking the entire time about how he's thinking about his beach houses in Malibu.
Would it stun? Because Greg was just trying to guess what Spoelstra's age is. Would it stun you that he's 50 years old?
Is he?
He does not look like a 50-year-old man. That dude ages brilliantly.
I thought he was like 45, 47.
He told you during Freedom that he's never going to retire. If you were listening to him, it was like, I'm not retiring. And his wife will tell you he's been talking about this for 15 years. And
about a house he's never going to get to.
I mean, he gets there. He gets there more than he ever has. And he has ceded more power to Spoelstra than Spoelstra has ever had. But it's still working under Riley. And Riley's older now. And Spoelstra's heard all the things. Like, at this point, I'm not kidding you, Stugotz. What do you think about this? You and I looked up one day and realized, oh, wait a minute. We were sort of professional parents for the shipping container. That's Spoelstra and Riley. That's Spoelstra and the Harrison family. Like, he came up he doesn't know anything else other than working in that environment from the very bottom. All the Harrisons, or I shouldn't say all, both Harrisons have done this. Mickey Harrison got this from Ted Harrison. Work every job in Carnival Cruise Lines from the very bottom of the job. Work all the jobs. He did the same thing with Nick Harrison. Nick, you're going to be ball boy, and you're going to help recruit Shane Battier and everyone else, but you're going to start as ball boy and you're going to crawl up the organization and you're going to do all the jobs. Eric Spoelstra was a kid who knew nothing, working 20-hour days at the bottom of the ship, where no one goes, cutting video splicing. Riley raised that dude. I don't know if at this point in his career, with kids and a family, Spoelstra's like, I don't need to be raised anymore. Like, I don't need to be the son for this organization.
I want to raise someone. Right?
I'm going to go and create my own thing. I just understand why it would be tempting. And this is just coming from one side. This is just Portland interested. It's not like Spoelstra has said anything to entertain what it is that I'm talking about here.
He's also about to enter his 14th season as head coach of the Miami Heat. And you wonder, I mean, they talk about coaching cycles being 5 to 7 years. He's in some ways on borrowed time in terms of his team tuning him out. Now, it has not happened at any point. Eric Spoelstra still gets the most out of his team, but you wonder if like a coach has any self-awareness to recognize they might be getting sick of
so much turnover.
So much turnover that none of the guys are there long enough to get sick of
You don't think Udonis has him, though? It's like in the back of the room, rolling his eyes, talking about process.
I think all of them are sick. To whatever degree they're sick of Eric Spoelstra, they're also sick of Udonis Haslem. Because they've both been there.
This guy get out of here already?
Udonis has been there as long as Spoelstra has been there. What are your thoughts here, Cody, as a lifelong observer of the Miami Heat since they were formed in 1988?
I think Spoelstra has a great situation here, and I don't assume that he's antsy to try something else. I think he's got such a stature. I think he's Popovich. I think he has such a reputation, a favorable reputation in this league, that he has the respect of players, and I think he's a great coach. They need to do everything they can to keep him, would be my mindset. And I just don't assume that he's antsy for more power. I don't assume that.
Dan, does he have this job for as long as he wants this job, Eric Spoelstra? For as long as he wants it?
No.
I
mean, you have to.
I thought that's part of Heat lifer, Heat family. Riley taught me, like, I'm going to stay here as long as I want to stay here. I have job security here is what I'm asking.
I don't think there is such a thing in that sport. Like, I guess Popovich has job security, but let him keep having a couple more losing seasons and have his politics run up against his ownership group for a long time and see if there isn't. This is what we were talking about with the Dallas Mavericks. Like, I can go into any organization and find the internal struggles that any human beings have in any workplace. Popovich is much easier to stomach with political opinions that run contrary to his ownership group when they're in the finals every year.
Right.
I don't know how many years of disappointment have to happen. I will tell you, I've told you this story, right? And it's one of many like this. Pat Riley, with a couple of bottles of wine, going to knock on the door of Eric Spoelstra during the playoffs. And what you hear from the other side is some form of get the bleep out of here. Just family dynamics. Just all the stuff that you would have with your own father because you haven't worked anywhere else. This is the only organization and culture that you have ever known professionally. And so Riley can come up with a couple of bottles of, and you're like, I don't want to deal with dad right now. Like, I just don't know how much of that is here right now, but I could see why it is that you would eventually get like tired or want something other than that, especially coming from somebody. I've told you this before when it comes to Pat Riley's advice. He told me, change careers every 10 years. Everything gets stale. He's saying, go try and become a doctor for 10 years. Try to become a lawyer for 10 years. He's not saying to actually do that. It's too hard. But he's saying when he looks back on his life, he wishes that he had made those kinds of changes. I've told you before, I've tried to follow that from within this realm where every 10 years, it was newspapers first, it was radio second, the third 10 years was television with my dad, and now the last of it will be podcasts. It's within this realm. I'm not brave enough to flip it over every time, but in order to keep life fresh, I'll ask you guys are all young fathers. You tell me how your perspective changed on how important work was or where it is that everything changed for you, because I do think that Eric Spoelstra is at a different time in his life and that being a father makes you stop being a son.
I would say, that's a good point. I don't really talk to my dad that much anymore because I got my own family to worry about. But yeah, that's absolutely true. And as far as job is concerned, like having a job. Yeah, that's very important. Having a family. I would like to have a job, and
and the job security of it.
and job security, which is what we all have here because we're doing our own thing. We're independent, so that's good. But Eric Spoelstra, I just don't see him going anywhere.
I feel like you guys are homers. You don't want him. Greg Cody's every opinion is going to arrive every time at that guy's not going to leave me. This is the best place for him to be.
Well, I do think this. I think Riley embraces the father role. He doesn't want to stop being the godfather of this franchise. And I thought it was very interesting after the Heat were swept by Milwaukee in the first round that Riley came right out and said Spo may have to rethink the way he uses Bam. That was an interesting comment to me because that was Riley being more than just the general manager. That was him
That pressure's always there. That pressure is there daily.
Right.
Riley runs that organization. Don't make any mistake about it.
But here's what you don't want if you're a father, if you have a family. Like, he has job security here, Dan, right? You move to Portland 3 years, it doesn't go well. Then all of a sudden you're moving your family from place to place, and you don't want that. Like, right now he has job security here. He can stay here, I'm assuming, until at least his kids go to college.
And the Heat just made the finals last year. It's not foreseeable for at least 5 years that he would be under any job security pressure for me.
The other variable too is that's a harder job. If you want to spend time with young kids,
yes,
responsible for the entirety of the organization is not the job that gives you balance.
Right.
It's the job that takes balance away. Tonight's game, before we get out of here, Kevin Durant across a decade, super teams. This is the most mutated form the super team has taken across this decade of that entire sport changing. It's all threes. It's all team up with your friends. The entire sport is different than it was when LeBron, Wade, and Bosh got together. And the machine has birthed this atrocity, this thing that's relentlessly interesting, but filled with unlikable people. A board member for Saks Fifth Avenue, someone who thinks the earth is flat, and someone who will not stop fighting with everyone on the internet. And now two of those guys have gone down. And Stugotz, I really do, the story arc on all of this stuff. Once upon a time, Kevin Durant was the guy who quietly went to work and signed an extension in Oklahoma City as that damn evil egomaniacal LeBron James did a television show. You did it the right way, Durant. We love you. You didn't make a super team. You did it the hard way until it got too hard, and then you did make a super team, and we turned on you too. And that team was great, and winning is hard, and they made it look easier than LeBron's team. They made it look too easy. LeBron bought himself legacy because of how hard it was. It was too easy for Kevin Durant, so he didn't get the validation. He leaves. No TV show, quietly goes to Brooklyn. Bleep you, New York. I'm not going to the Knicks. I'm going to Brooklyn. You bring Kyrie Irving, fellow weirdo, then you trade for James Harden. All season long, we've never seen anything like this. You don't need any one of them to be in the game. You will be good. If any one of them misses, you will be one of the best teams in the league.
Correct.
Now, two of them are out. You're playing for your life against the defensive player of the year and a team that we all acknowledge is better equipped for the playoffs than it has been.
And you're doing so with Blake Griffin.
And Joe Harris. And you've got to win a home game tonight because he's in a walking boot. Kyrie Irving's in a walking boot, and James Harden just got upgraded. This got real fast because you gave the title to them a couple of games ago, and you gave it to them a couple of months ago, and they blow out. They win by 40 against Milwaukee. And now, he looks behind him, and where are the reinforcements? This calls for, you were calling for this in game 4 when he went, whatever it was, 9 for 26.
Yeah.
This calls for a show me you're great game without a lot of help against a team that's going to be very difficult to do against, with PJ Tucker bothering you and the length of the Bucks bothering you.
But he can do it because he's that great of an offensive talent. He's that great of a basketball player. And I think that's what people are going to be glued to tonight. It's a great game. It's 2-2, right? The series is kind of on the line here.
What do you expect?
He should have like a LeBron type game. It should be like 38 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists. He has to put the team on his back for a single night. That's what Kevin Durant has to do. Can he do it? We'll find out. I think he can, Dan.
It's crazy that we've already reached that standard with Durant as well. He's coming off an Achilles injury, right? We just assume that Durant is Durant, but in some ways, his minutes have to be managed as well, in theory, because he's coming off a major injury that we thought was going to wreck his career.
Billy, what is this joy that has swept across your face? You just rubbed your hands together like a movie villain.
I love it. I don't know what's going on. It seems like you and Stugotz have switched roles, but it sounds like Dan is saying this is a legacy game tonight for Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Stugotz is saying not a big deal. It's 2-2. Anything can happen. But Dan, no, you're right. Legacy game tonight. Win it, and you're maybe a great until the next legacy game. Lose it.
You can't have a legacy game
over.
at 2-2 when there aren't actually.
You said it, not me.
Yeah, you can. You seem to say it, Dan.
I'm not saying it. All I said it was an interesting game, and you guys are so moved by that you've upgraded it to a legacy game. I just said it.
Win.
All I said, it was interesting. I didn't even call it must win.
I'll tell you what, if he can get through Giannis and this Bucks team, which for the most part is healthy, if he can get through this without James Harden, without Kyrie Irving, I might be willing to give him a ring. I might be willing to give him, maybe. I'm thinking about it, pondering.
That's incentive. That's all he needs.
Yep.
Would you consider reinstating any of the rings he won in Golden State?
No, no. He never gets them.
No.
Maybe, possibly, I'm considering. This is the incentive, the bulletin board material.
Big game.
You are giving Kevin Durant as if the pressure weren't high enough on him today. Stugotz is maybe kind of sort of considering possibly giving him a ring in a personal record book that he will never actually write because he's too lazy.
Correct.
Okay. You've been called out, Durant.